Everybody, welcome back to Travelers Proc. Sorry for the month downtime, but we are back. We're excited to be back. We are going to be using this opportunity during the SPL break while Aurora is back home visiting family to have people on the show that otherwise we wouldn't be able to have in person. So as you can see today, we're joined by DJ. DJ, for those of you who are back around in the old days, you might remember him for a little Chunga Jungle. Of course, he was a prominent streamer, leader of the Legion of Carrots, former teammate of Aurora's back on Eager and Cog. So, yeah, thanks for coming on, DJ. We're excited to have you.
Happy to be here. Glad you guys are able to do this stuff.
Yeah, you were asking about what made us, or you were saying it's cool that we did this. It was actually Hindu Man's idea because I brought it up to him like 4 seasons ago that I was interested in doing a podcast, and they updated like all of the studio. It's a lot different since the last time you were there. Was the last LAN the season 4 LAN that you were at? Probably, right? Like in spring.
That sounds about right. Sounds about right.
It's like the studio is completely different since then, and they've redone a lot of stuff. Like because during COVID, we didn't have any of the time in the studio, so they took like all the money for a lot of the stuff, and they put it all back into the studio, and it's like really nice now, and they have like a really cool podcast room and like a bunch of stuff. So we were able to use it, so it's been really awesome, and it's been great. But yeah, I'm so happy you're on.
Yeah, I saw the I don't know, I haven't been there, but it looks like they have different team rooms now, like for when you're playing matches. That are separated. And that's pretty cool. It kind of gives me vibes of like the Dota setup where you have like kind of an isolated pod, or even like how Counter-Strike does it these days. Because obviously in the past you're sitting right next to each other. There's like some things that are said or things that are heard and whatnot, which is fine. You know, it is what it is. Part of the game. But yeah, but now it's kind of the more, I guess, professional setup. So I'm sure they've made some adjustments to the studio.
It's definitely better competitively, but part of me does miss especially like the regional lands where it'd be NA and EU like finally play each other. All the trash talk that you used to be able to hear, I do miss that a little bit.
Dude, that was so much fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
One of my favorite things ever was when you were playing Bastet and you were taunting Mask after you killed him. Like it was dual lane in front of dual lane Phoenix on like, I think we were like Chaos side, so they were Order side, and you literally killed him like right before he got into his Phoenix. You chased him all the way from like red buff to Phoenix and killed him. You spam taunted him. The next game he kills you on mid lane Phoenix, and he's like flailing his hands everywhere and saying like, yeah, get wrecked, and then we kill him, and then I yell back, I'm like, don't celebrate early. That's literally one of my favorite like trash talk moments ever. It was so funny. And then he just didn't say anything the rest of the set after that.
Oh yeah. No, I think my favorite was you can hear the tone of people's voice. Like you don't even know what they're saying. You can just hear the tone of their voice too and tell what's going on. Like I remember a game we played against Mask, and like I knew, like I like Mask, he's a good guy, but like I knew like mentally he was a little frail at that time. And I was like, watch this. We're going to do XYZ, and you're going to hear him do, XYZ or whatever. And then we're going to do this. I could see it in my head before it ever happened. And we did what we wanted to do. And I hear the tone of his voice start freaking out a little bit and like elevating. And I was like, and then we like executed perfectly, and they got demolished. And like, you could just like hear it like before your very own, like, like eyes and like whatnot, like how the studio is set up. Like it was perfect. I loved it. That stuff was so fun. Like you can just tell the vibe of the team and what was going on. It was great.
Dude, the one thing, oh my God, it was like when we did the invade strat, we were like Divios is like, I'm going to walk in as Sobek, and he's going to start freaking out as soon as he sees me.
Yep.
And that was literally, I think it was against them. And you're like, I remember that. It was so funny. It was either group stage or, it had to be group stage because it was on LAN or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, we knew exactly what was going to happen. We knew they'd like over-rotate, like waste cooldown, do something weird stuff, and then we'd get an advantage somewhere else. And like we knew everything was going on just by like how they were talking to each other. Those were good times.
Yeah, it was super funny. So what we usually do at the start is like we ask everybody like how they got into Smite, how they like found the game, and what made them like it and like continue to play it for as many years as like you did.
Yeah. So I think for me, like when I first found Smite, I was playing Counter-Strike for sure, but I don't know if I was like, I think I was at the tail end of my like time playing competitive, because basically there was a point at which like CS was transitioning to CS:GO, but like early CS:GO was a really not good game at all. So a lot of like the 1.6 players were like very hesitant to make the swap, and they were probably doing other things like me. And so I found the Smite beta, and it was like the very early beta. I'm pretty sure it was when there was only like 5 gods or whatever, right? There's like Ymir and like the original
There
Hunt Bats,
was like
Artemis.
11, I think.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
like very very few. I know there's Ymir, Artemis, Hunt Bats. I don't even remember what else.
Hebo, Vamana, Kali,
Maybe Raw. Maybe was one of them.
Ra, Odin,
Yeah,
and Vamana. I think those were all
yeah.
of them.
Yeah, so it was that time, and I remember like I would play with my friend Mikey, who was no longer playing competitive CS, but he was still like someone I grew up with playing Counter Strike and traveling around with, going to tournaments and whatnot, and then some other people like Counter Strike people and just like friends. And I loved the game. I thought it was so fun because it felt like WoW Arena combined with Counter Strike, like some of the elements of both. And I was like, it was so addicting. I just played like all the time. Like anytime I could play, I was playing. And then I just kind of kept playing more and more, even without my friends. That I would like. We originally played pre-mades, and like where we just have 5-man team and we just crush everyone. But even when they weren't playing, I started playing more and more. And I played a lot of Odin back in the day, and I would go lifesteal and crit, and I would cage people, and I'd go to like 1% life, but then I'd crit them for like 1500, and it would heal me to full because like the way it worked. Even it was at the time
Odin
where
Cage gave power.
What?
It gave power, I think, if you Odin Cage. It was I loved it so much.
Yeah, and the attack speed, it was like the Artemis attack speed too. Like you literally like would just like smash people. And it was at the time where if someone had 10% life and you hit them for like a 1500 crit, you'd still get full life steal for it. So you could literally just keep holding mouse one and just like demolish everyone. So anyway, I kept doing that and I loved it. And then there was like the whole ranked queue for a while. And there was the whole time where like Bart would stream a ranked game every day. And so it was like your goal in life to like make the queue at the time that he was streaming the ranked game and have high enough elo to get in that game. And I would always pick like stuff like Odin, and then like Zapman would get mad because he was like, why is this guy picking Odin? And it was a blast. I love that stuff. And then I just kind of kept playing. And obviously, like since I'd played other games competitively, I was like wanting to play competitive and kind of got into the scene a little bit. And then just kind of went from there.
How long did you play CS beforehand? Because I had known that you played it, but I don't really know your full background with that.
Yeah, I started playing Counter-Strike when I was in middle school. I stole my friend's Counter-Strike 1.5 disc and I installed it on my computer, and I never gave it back. I actually played on my dad's laptop, so he'd come home from work and I'd instantly ask him if I could have his laptop, and then I'd play on it until I went to sleep, basically. And I would do like stupid stuff. I'd play like some of the aim maps and like some of the like little like pool party map things and like CS Italy and all this BS. And then I started I just played all the time and just get better and better. And then I started wanting to play competitive, and I'd go to like little LAN centers in the area. And then I started like doing scrims and stuff like that. And then I downloaded MIRC, which I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it was like, I don't know, I guess kind of similar to Discord in a way, but it was like really like almost like a DOS-based prompt kind of like ghetto chat room thing where there was like find clan, and you would be like 18-year-old male like with Cal intermediate experience looking for a team, like what can scrim these times, and like everyone else had their thing, and you like click on the guy and you message him and then you have a tryout. And so I just like found teams through that. And then I was still like playing sports in high school, and like I still tried to do good in school. So I didn't get like super crazy until I was probably like 15, 16. And then I started like going hard at Counter-Strike, where like I'd go to all the local tournaments, and then I started driving down to like the Southern California tournaments. And then when we started doing good, then you start flying to like Texas or wherever to play the bigger tournaments. So
was that like
you went quiet for a second. Your mic went out or cut out.
Oh, hello? Does it work now?
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah,
my bad. Yeah, I was asking, was that during the days of like, was it called the MLG circuits? I don't know if that was on there, but that's all I really remember like way back then.
No. So when I first started playing, it was Cal League. So like Cal I was like the upper echelon, and the big tournament was called CPL. And CPL was this tournament where basically anyone could sign up, but they did seedings based on where you were ranked in the world, like your team. And so obviously the higher ranked teams would have like the higher seeds, but there would still always be upsets. It was like a double elimination tournament. But people would come from all across the world. It was like, imagine like Worlds and Smite, but instead of like only some teams can show up, like any team who signed up could come. You just might have to play more games to get into like playing against the real teams.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And if you actually like practiced really hard and happen to have like some good rising talent and stuff, you could actually make it, a ways up. Like it's very possible, but it was just like a big event that would take multiple days. And it was really cool. So yeah, there was that. And then it turned into the online league, then went to something called CEVO. And then it turned into something called ESEA. If you guys have ever heard of that.
I feel like I've heard of ESEA.
I heard of CPL as well, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we also had a bunch of other tournaments like WCG or World Cyber Games, which was fun. And there's a bunch of other ones. ESL. There's like a bunch of like little organizations like that put on these tournaments, and so they were a good time.
Given your sorry, Max, go ahead.
Okay, I remember you were telling me that during your CS, like when you were playing on a bunch of teams, like you guys would play a bunch of WoW as well. And you'd always be playing WoW instead of scrimming or whatever. You got on some teams that would play WoW Arena more than CS. Well, I remember you were telling me about that.
Yeah, it'd be like, okay, we all know that like when we scrim with Zapman, like he's like, all right, well, let's call scrims because like we want to go play like one of those stupid like MMOs that he plays or like some dumb game, You're like
changed, by the way.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, and that's I get it. But like that was the kind of how we were at times where we were like, okay, we're done scrimming, all right, let's log on WoW. And we would definitely play a ton of Arena. Like I played a lot of TBC Arena and like original TBC Arena. And yeah, it was a blast. And I loved World of Warcraft. And I played some vanilla too, original vanilla, but I was like really young back then. But yeah.
So you pretty much tried to try to get involved in the competitive scene in every like game that you played then.
Yeah, that's all I care about. Like everyone always gives me game advice. I'm like, I'm bored. I don't like the games I'm playing. And they're like, oh, you should play this game. I'm like, no, that's a single player game. Or like even like, oh, that's a multiplayer game, but it's like not competitive at all. Like I don't like that. I like playing competitive games and like just shitting on people and just being like, you suck. Like
like sports, like growing up, you think?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I'm just a competitive person. I mean, like, I don't want to, I guess you don't really love making people feel bad, but you like showing people like, hey, I can do this and you can't. Like, I think that always makes you feel good. And part of that's just like, that you're willing to like work hard and like learn how to do some like things within a game that other people haven't figured out yet. Right. Like it's no different in Smite, right? Like it's always fun to find something new that might not be in the meta, whether it's a character, item, strategy, and then just destroy people who may be like doubters. And then you're like, yeah, told you.
Yeah, right? I feel like for me, that was like the main thing going from just like sports growing up to Smite. I feel like when you're playing sports, you're just like, not like following a blueprint, but everybody's like, trying to get better at shooting in basketball, for example, or whatever the case may be. And I feel like in games, it's really unique that you're trying to like actually learn new mechanics that get patched in like all the time and like try to figure out what's broken before other people or how to use it. I feel like that's a really unique thing that if you're a competitive person, that kind of like draws you in to go further and further into the game.
Yeah. Well, and I think you can see it in sports too. I think the difference is like games are so like new. Like gaming in general is new. And then every game you play is really not that old. Even like Smite that's been around forever now. Like when you compare that to something like basketball, right? Like basketball's been around forever. So trying to break the game of basketball is pretty hard. But even in like traditional sports like basketball, there's a lot of good players and people love those good players. But the great players are people who like change the game, right? Like the Steph Currys of the world, where like they literally changed the game of basketball. So like I think there's more of an opportunity to do those things in a newer game or like even a competitive environment that people just don't have as much knowledge about. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I actually want to get to some of that later, but I cut you off, Max. My bad.
No, go ahead. You're good.
Oh, no. Well, I was just going to, I guess, before you had mentioned a little bit like playing with your friends in Smite. What got you actually into the competitive scene? Like, was it the weekly tournaments back then? I'm not actually sure how it worked, like season 0 days, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Was Down to Frag it wasn't your first team, right? It was your second team, I think, that you played the weekly tournaments in.
Honestly, I wish I had the memory of Aror. I don't remember like every team I played with and like how it all started. But I do remember like kind of the breakthrough, I think, was at one point I was on a team and I think it was Down to Frag.
No, it was Down to Frag. I remember that week.
I think Cog had won like everything for like 10 weeks straight or something, and then we beat them.
You crushed them too, I'm pretty sure.
And then that was like the end of their like unbeatable, the best players. I was like, well, we just destroyed them. Like, and we were just a bunch of randoms. I don't think anyone on our team was necessarily like a well-known person. I mean, maybe like, you know, ranked players, but.
Who was the mid laner on your team? I forget his name. He didn't want to play Smite, but he played. You know what you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I can't remember his name. He was so good though. I remember.
Yeah,
he just didn't like Smite that much.
I'm pretty sure he was a league player.
Yeah,
I think, but yeah,
he'd always like disappear. Like he'd just play the weekly tournament and then be gone for a week and then show up and then disappear. But he was always really good. I remember. And then it was like Mini Pern, and then Kiki was on your team too, right?
Yeah, Kiki was on my team. Yeah, and I think a lot of the stuff I did with Kiki was like helped us because like Kiki obviously is a really smart guy and would have good ideas. And then I feel like I would try to feed off of his ideas to like he would play Afro and I would play like Chalk, and I would literally just run at people, and me and him could like 2 versus 5. Like we knew we just needed to get to a certain point of the game and it was over. Like no one could do anything to us. So yeah.
Yeah, Kiki was the OG Afro.
Yeah.
I remember random off topic, but at season 1 regionals, Shing was playing Soul Lane, and he got really mad because Kiki only played Afro and Nuwa, and he made Shing play that. And then I remember he blamed Kiki for them losing to Cog or something. I always think that's like such a funny story because Kiki's like always playing all these mages, and all these other Soul Laners were trying to copy off him, and no one could do it as good as him ever, I felt like.
Yeah, no, it was different, but he was exceptional at it.
And then season 1, you played with my team a little bit after we qualified, right? Or did you qualify with us? That's one thing I can't remember because I can't remember who I was talking to, like Fat Chunks. Did you play in the qualifier with us, or did you play after we qualified? You probably don't remember, but I was trying to think about this the other day.
I feel like I played in at least a qualifier of some sort with you guys.
Yeah, because I know
I could be wrong, but
because I know the main reason you didn't want to play with us is just because everybody on the team was so young, like Sam Shrew and Cyclone, and you're like, I can't do that. You would just start laughing in the middle of the game and be like, I can't take this serious because Sam Shrew was like 12 years old, and he would call something, and you'd be like, oh my god, I cannot take this serious. And you're like, I can't do this.
Dude, that's because Sam Shrew was like 12 going on 6. Like, like when he spoke, I was just like, oh my god. Like,
it's like when you hear a little kid on Xbox Live, like or something.
It was 100% like that. Yeah. Absolutely.
Dude, you made me laugh, so I would laugh every time you'd say that. Like, so you'd be like, I can't take this serious. And like, you were being serious about it, but I thought you were trolling like a little bit, but you really couldn't take it serious. It was funny though.
Dude, I was so used to being the youngest person on my teams in Counter-Strike. And you go to these tournaments and you're like grown adults and I was the kid. And then it like completely swapped. I was like, yeah, it was literally, I'd log on and felt like I was playing Xbox. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah, so that was your first. You played. Yeah, I think you played the qualifier with us then, because you never played an SPL set, but you qualified with us in SPL. And then season 2, you played with Pain, right? That was like the first team you played with that got going like pretty well against us in like the weekly Challenger Cup tournament when I was on Eager originally.
Yeah. Well, definitely played with Pain for a while because we did the Legion of Carriage thing and qualified.
It was it was you, Pain, Panda Cat was on your team?
Yeah, Panda Cat. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was definitely Panda Cat.
And then I can't remember who else was on your team. Aduro?
Was it Awesome to the max? Was that your solo?
Yeah, Awesome was for a while. So it was definitely Aduro for a while. and in Panda Cat for sure. And Panda Cat was like in school at the time, and his parents were really strict, so it was like kind of rough because sometimes he'd just disappear for a little while and then come back. And then we had like a rotating set of soul laners. It was like a bunch of different guys, just depending on like who was available, and then like sometimes people again would like kind of disappear for a while. I don't know, but yeah,
What
we
was
did
that?
good though.
Do you remember your transition? Because I remember, because I was still very new back then, but I remember the one I remember the most vividly was the COG team in season 2 with you guys together. Do you remember the transition? Like, did Payne keep that spot and turn it into enemy? I don't remember all of that.
Yeah. He kept the spot.
Was it
yeah.
like the Payne Classic? Like everyone was just gone except him.
I don't think it was everyone. I think it was I was gone.
Yeah, no,
and
it
then-
was. It was that. It
Was it
that.
everyone?
Yeah, it was everybody. Everybody made that meme like General Payne kicks everybody or whatever, and that like lasted for a really long time. Where he like kicked everybody on the team because he had the captain spot or whatever.
Yeah, he had the captain spot. I mean, it was definitely at least if not everyone, it was everyone but him and like maybe one person. Because I remember like talking to Hyras now that I think about it, and I was like, so let me get this straight. He has the captain spot, so he gets the spot even though like the vast majority of the team just said they want to keep playing together and like keep the spot, and they're like, yeah, that's how the rules work. And I was like, huh.
Wait, did you guys want to kick him? Do you remember? How did that even happen?
I don't think that we even necessarily wanted to kick him. We just didn't want to like blow the team up. I don't think.
Oh, okay.
But I think, I don't know. But I think he was. What was that one guy? I think you were friends with that one guy that like didn't really ever play competitive, but was friends with you guys, including like Benji and all of them.
Oh God, was it Drelo back then?
Yeah, it was Drelo.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure that guy was like after we'd scrim would talk to Payne and Benji and like some of these other people, and then like he like kind of wanted them to like make a team together, and so he was definitely like kind of one of the people that was in on it.
People were some slippery snakes back then, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of how that idea got put into Payne's head, and then Payne, I think, just ran with it, and I was like, okay, interesting.
It's funny.
You ended up getting. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna just say it's funny because like all these roster changes happened back then, and like roster changes happen now, and everybody like freaks out so much. But like the roster changes back then, like Mike was talking about it, now it's been like a month and a half ago, like a couple episodes ago, and he was like, it was like the Wild West back then. There's like so many crazy rules where like the captain just had full control, because I think they changed the ruling after that happened. So I mean, it was at your expense, but it was at least helpful for everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how much you remember it early season 3, but I was talking about it was I think it was Mask. He played with like 3 or 4 different teams in one split at the start of season 3. Like he just kept bouncing back and forth, and it's just funny now because like Max said, we'll have like literally like one person gets kicked and everybody's like, this is ridiculous. How do you make a roster change mid split? And people just have no idea. Yeah. So how did that transition to? So it was the early COG days. I don't even remember like how that team blew up, because I think that was like the Bickham Meerkat team or something like that.
It was Herwin. Wasn't it Herwin? Tommy Faye?
That sounds right.
David Fry messaged you right about the spot or something, and that's how you got it.
So obviously David Fry, last name Fry, parents owned like the Fry like store, right, with all the computer stuff, and that originated in like the Bay Area in San Jose where I grew up. So he literally lived like where I lived, and so he I think messaged me, and I think Matty Pocket messaged me too because he was friends with him, and then I think they wanted to like make something. And for whatever reason, David Fry really liked me. And so like, I know we were like trying to set something up. And then I think the caveat was that once we started setting stuff up, we were like, okay, like I'm down to play with all these guys and do this, but they don't want to play with Matty Pocket, and I'm okay with that. So like, sorry, Matty, but we don't want to play with you. He was really upset about that. Yeah, so...
Yeah, Kabam wanted to play with me really bad because we queued all the time. Kabam was the one who got me in on the spot, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Because you guys did pretty well that split.
And then Meerkat was also on the team, and I know I was really good friends with Meerkat too back then.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, we did pretty good, and there was definitely some games that like honestly it was like one thing would change differently and we would have like won everything basically. So we were always in the mix for sure.
Do you remember the DDoSing that happened that entire phase? We haven't really ever talked about it yet on the podcast. I wanted to bring it up this week. Is like because I think it happened to us one game. It happened to Kabam. I remember. I don't know if you probably don't remember because like you said your memory is pretty bad. But he was playing. But he was playing Medusa. And he was Medusa ulting, and he got DDoSed in the middle of his Medusa ult, and he literally he Medusa ulted, and then his game dropped, and then we paused. I remember, and we paused like mid Medusa ult, and then we ended up dropping a double kill, and they were dead because like if he just hits Medusa ult, they both die, and I remember we unpaused the game, and like his Medusa ult just he didn't turn it enough or whatever because he DC'd, but we were able to pause it and we dropped 2 kills. I can't remember what team it was against, but that was the only time I think it ever happened to our team. I think it happened to LG, and who was the other team that was really good that phase, Mike? It was LG and was it the
Did it happen to where they were AFK then, right? Did it
Yeah,
happen to
AFK.
them?
Yeah, I think so. AFK and LG.
Yeah.
But do you remember any of that DDoSing stuff or no?
Yeah, I remember that stuff. It always just annoyed me though, to be honest, because like that stuff happened in Counter-Strike all the time, and we always told people were like, okay, like don't use Skype and don't do this, and they're like, if you do not do that, then no one has your IP and they
Yeah.
cannot DDoS you, and then people would still do it all the time, and you're like, okay, well, like I don't know how to solve this for you guys, like, and it would happen all the time. I think it happened to like in Dinister a lot or whatever, like Andy, like because again he used Skype all the time, and I'm just like, dude, like what are you guys doing? Like, stop, just like stop using Skype. It's not hard, but yeah, like everyone would get DDoSed.
Dude, I remember Eager used to use Skype and Mumble back then, and I was streaming, and this was like the night before our SPL matches, and we were gonna do like prep, and I was streaming, and I was about to like turn off my stream, and I accidentally showed Skype on stream, and I was like freaking out. It was like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. at night, and I remember like spamming. I think it was APC at the time. I had to like spam him on Google or something. I was like, how do I reset my IP? Like, how do I get around this? Because at the time it was so annoying too, because the standings were actually pretty close. Like there were like 5 or 6 teams. It was really everybody, but I think it was like was it? It wasn't Enemy. I forget what team. Whoever it was, Elevate. That's who it was. Like it was like everyone but Elevate was pretty competitive, and they had like not won a single set. So it was so annoying because you'd have like every week some team would just lose a set to DDoS. It was really frustrating.
Yeah,
That's when they made it because there was only supposed to be 4 teams at regionals, and then they turned it in. That's where the super regionals term came in, and they did 6 teams instead of 4. And I remember a lot of people were really upset by that, but I thought it was fine, just because everybody's like, it's more than like. What do you think of that? Like, do you think it's dumb that 6 out of the 8 teams in the league qualify for events? Or
I think
no?
it's fine. I think it's always good to have more people at lands. Like, I mean, like, because the reality is, like, at least from a Counter-Strike background, we'd always say, like, we'd call people, like, onliners. Like, nothing matters online. Like, yeah, like, that's how you qualify for events or whatever. But, like, none of that matters when you're sitting on your own little, like, nice chair with your little slippers on. Like, none of that matters.
Especially when the trash talk was actually a factor
Yeah.
back then.
Yeah. Like, all that matters is when you show up to, like, a completely foreign environment, can you, like, set your stuff up and like chill out and just play the game? And if you can't, then like what's the point of bringing you on our team? To look good like online? Like who cares about that? So like I'm all for like the bigger events, so I'm down with that.
You remember the first LAN when I was setting my stuff up, and you were like, "That's all you have?" Because I had no mouse pad. I literally just had my keyboard that was like this little wimpy wireless keyboard that was like super tiny. And then I had my mouse, and that's it. And you're like, that's your setup? You couldn't believe it. And like, because you had your mouse bungee and like all your like your mouse pad, and like you had a really good setup. And I remember after that, I got a mouse pad. I still use it. It's the Corsair one, like the M300 or something. Give us a sponsor or whatever, but I'm just kidding. But yeah, I still use that mouse pad. But that always makes me laugh because I always think about that whenever I'm setting my stuff up and I see someone who comes in to the studio new, like Snatty is like an SCC player that came in, and like he had no mouse pad, and he's like, man, it's hard to play without a mouse pad. And the way he like talks is so funny because he's like, it's so hard to play without a mouse pad. I really should have had a mouse pad for this. It was literally the last event at the studio. I was like, yeah, it definitely helps.
Yeah. Well, and people like don't know, like there was if you go into your mouse settings, there's a setting that like smooths your mouse or not. Like people didn't know, like, do I have this clicked on or off, which basically is the difference between having mouse acceleration or not, which is like huge. And they didn't know, like, am I a 3 out of 11 like line person on my Microsoft settings? Am I like a 6 out of 11? And like all those things change your multiplier on your sensitivity. And it's like, it's not like rocket science, but you need to know like your very basic like mouse settings so that the sensitivity feels pretty much the same. Because like otherwise you like start freaking out and you're just like, this doesn't feel right, like I'm missing everything. And then you like, even if you get it close, you're like mentally think it's different, and then it's just a mess. So like, yeah, there's a lot of Smite people who like had no idea how to set up for a LAN at all.
People still mess up their refresh rate on their monitors. Like they won't check it and they'll just play on 60 for the whole
which changes your mouse sensitivity too. Like the hertz on your monitor is so crucial. Like, and it's like some people play on like 144. Some people like in Counter-Strike would strictly play on 100. Like there's like, you know, I know there's now like 240 hertz and stuff, like all that stuff. Like, again, it doesn't matter which one you choose. It just matters that the one you practice on is the one you use. And like a lot of people just, they're like oblivious. So that was funny.
I definitely appreciate it because like without, like if I feel like if I went to a LAN and played, well, I guess I did. I played season 1. And I guess playing with you at like in an event, it made things a lot easier. Like just but the sensitivity thing was like a big one because I remember you always preach playing on lower sense as well, and I played on like 3200 as well. I lowered mine to like 800, and but like things like that, I feel like helped me out a lot, which is really helpful. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And that's the difference too. Like in Counter-Strike, like the LANs were just so much more frequent and like important. Where again, like I don't know how, as you guys growing up as kids, like if you went to very many LAN centers, that's just like what you did. Like you had a backpack, you put your keyboard, your mouse pad, your mouse, your headphones, even like in your backpack, and you rode your bike to LAN, like the LAN center, and you played with your friends. And then every once in a while there's a local tournament, and then every once in a while you literally get these group of like 5 people. Like sometimes it was like me as a 15-year-old with like this like 18-year-old high school senior, and then this like 21-year-old who's actually like an electrician who's also on my Counter-Strike team. And you just get this team of people and you like go to this LAN, and like, and that was just like what you did, and you just do it so many times that you like get good at it. It's like second nature. But obviously like now it's probably not as frequent to people to go to these LAN centers and LAN tournaments, so it's just like a whole new like thing. You're just like, whoa, like it's just so much different like environment. But it's fun though.
Yeah, I never got to play tournaments, but I know my older brother and I, we used to go to, there were like some PC cafes and stuff, and we'd go there and play like WoW with a bunch of people. And that was like the closest experience I got. But even now, like I've had times where people will first move here, or they'll come down, like European players will come down and like want to scrim before their matches. And they'll have no idea what to like do. They don't know like how to go to like, you know, a LAN like center or PC cafe, like anything like that. And it's just so funny. It's just like a lost like art of video games, kind of.
Yeah, I miss it. I mean, I know it's hard for those companies to stay in business, like because a lot of people have good computers now, where it used to be like not everyone had a computer at home that could play video games. So like there was a need for it. But I do think like it's a cool thing that maybe should come back, and you know, it's not like a necessity, like you have your own home computer, but like maybe a more like luxury cafe where it's not only just about like playing games, like there are like other things there that you can like have fun with your friends, because that stuff was such a good, it was like such a good time going to like, I loved that stuff. Like it was so fun to go to LAN centers.
What'd your parents think of like you playing when you were like younger, playing like CS and going to LAN centers and stuff? Did they like it, or they like?
No, they hated it.
They hated it.
Yeah, my parents hated me playing games. Because like they weren't like the most strict ever, but they were pretty strict. Like you needed to get good grades, you needed to play sports and do well in your sports and blah blah blah. And so if I was playing video games, they'd be like, you know, tell me to go play sports instead, or like work on schoolwork, or just go outside, you know, like the typical thing. And so like what I would do is, like I said, I would literally get on my bike and go to the public library and play RuneScape, or like go further than that and go to the LAN center to play with my friends. So like, no, they did not like it at all. And like sometimes I was honest about like where I was going. Sometimes I would be like, yeah, I'm gonna go to my friend's house. They're having a get together, blah blah blah. And I would literally drive like 3 hours away from my hometown to go to like a tournament elsewhere. Or even one time, I told him I was like, I think I told him I was going to Disneyland with my friend, and like we literally got my computer out of my room, like distracted my parents, put it in my friend's car, and like drove it all the way to Los Angeles for it was a BYOC, like bring your own computer, like where like you brought your own computer and can scrim against other teams, and then you play the tournament on like computer tournament computers and stuff. It was like this whole event. Like I don't know how I got my computer and everything out of the house and drove down to LA. Like and they never knew. They had no clue. Like
That's awesome.
When did you tell them? That's super funny.
I never told them to this day.
That's even better. I never told them.
Yeah. So what do they think about like when you started playing Smite, and like did you ever tell them about that, or they just were like, whatever, like they didn't really care about it, or were they used to it by then that you like just played games and stuff a bunch because you played in so many CS tournaments? Well, I guess they didn't really know about it, but
well, they knew about some of them. Some of them
Yeah.
definitely knew about it. Like as I got older, it became less of a like I didn't need to hide it from me, because what are you gonna like? I'm in college, like in LA at that point. Like, what are you gonna tell me? I can't go like to the tournament? Like, okay. No, I think once they kind of saw it, like one, they saw me making money, and two, it started to be a bigger thing, like the streams and stuff. Like I think they thought it was more cool, for sure. And then also, I think there came a point where I was like, they couldn't really say that I wasn't doing what they asked me to do. Like I was doing well in school and stuff. So like they started to become more accepting of it, right? Because like, what are you gonna tell me? Like I should not play video games because why? Like, well, how is it negatively affecting me? Like, you know? And at that point, once they like accepted it, they started to become like cooler about it and even like encouraging in some ways.
Nice.
So.
I remember one funny thing that always makes me laugh so hard till this day. I was playing Sylvanas. I think it was Super Regionals, and I think your mom called you afterwards, and you were talking to her, and then you told me like later that night. I was talking to my mom, and she was telling me that you should have hid in the jungle more because you were a tree or something. And I always every time I play Sylvanas, I think of that. It makes me laugh so hard.
Yeah, they had no idea what was going on. But
you were telling me she was telling you that why is the tree not hiding in the jungle more to camouflage?
That sounds about right.
I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
You mentioned something there about the streaming I actually wanted to ask you about, because I feel like, at least from my perspective, when I first got into the game, I feel like you were one of the early like bigger Smite streamers. What got you into that? Like, did you enjoy it? Did you see yourself putting a lot of time into that? Like, kind of how did that all come to be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't really know why I started streaming, to be honest. I think like probably just saw other people doing it, and I was like, well, if I'm gonna be playing the game like late at night, and there's like all these people that watch these other people, like I guess I should just stream. And like it also became kind of like a challenge too, right? Like because there was like a point at which you needed like X concurrent viewers to get partnerships. So it was like kind of like another challenge. You're like, well, I'll just like stream my games, like hang out with people, and like see if I can like get partnership, and then maybe like I don't know, make a little extra money on the side just from like doing it. And then it became like fun too, like because I think my chat was really, some people's chats are kind of just like they just like don't really talk much, or it's generic. But I feel like my people were like pretty interactive. And then I would also do other things besides Smite too, like periodically, like role play games and like random stuff. Like someone in your chat said, like farming simulator, like just, and like everyone seemed to love that stuff. And so I just kept doing it more and more. And then like the other thing is like I feel like I was really lucky. Like people from my chat were so funny that like it made it so enjoyable. Like someone just mentioned H1Z1, like, and like that's when I started playing a lot with Ependary. And like that guy is so funny. Like it didn't feel like work or anything like that, because I'm like, I literally get to play with this like funny ass Estonian guy who's absolutely ridiculous. Like he's just saying wild stuff. Like, and so it just kind of kept going and going and just kind of grew. I don't know. But yeah.
I feel like you were really early on to having like the good experience of Twitch, where you were pretty personable, so it wasn't just like a really monotone gameplay stream. I feel like you would talk about your schooling or whatever else. And like even today, if you stream, you'll have like a bunch of people who are just like coming in, like obviously have all like grown up for the most part and just like say what's up or say hi. I feel like it's a really cool like that's like the cool niche of Twitch, like that social aspect of it where they're not just watching you for playing the game, they're watching you for you know?
Yeah, for sure. You definitely get like some people have just a really good community, and you just like hang out and chat, and it's more than just the game for sure.
Yeah, your sub sound is thanks for the creatine. Is it still
Yeah.
that or no?
I guess I haven't changed anything. I guess.
I remember that still.
Yeah. No, and that was okay. That guy who did that voiceover was a guy that I role played with, and he was so funny. I forget his name, but we were going around the little town, right, doing the role play game, and I don't know what we were doing, but there was cops and they were arresting someone, and it was that guy who did that voiceover, and he like was getting arrested and going into the cop vehicle, and he accidentally grabbed a gun and like pointed at the cops, and they tased him, and he was just like screaming, and it was like the funniest role play ever. And his name was Steve. Like, yeah, I think it was Steve. And so then I like added him on Steam, and we'd like role play from time to time. And he was so funny. And then I was like, bro, and he had the craziest voice ever. Like his voice was so unique. I was like, can you just do all the noises for my notifications for my like stream? And he's like, yeah, sure. So then he just recorded stuff for me, and I made
That's
it my
so cool.
alert. Yeah.
It's awesome. What about the other thing that's funny from your stream too that I remember it was like the goofy. What was the goofy alert that you had?
Oh yeah.
What is
I did
that?
have the goofy. It was I think wasn't it just a picture of me that was on like a goofy face?
Yeah.
And it was like
what was the alert for?
It was when they donate. I think it's when someone donates. I think it's like the gosh, and it was just me with the goofy face. Like, yeah, I don't know who made that one, but that one was good too.
Yeah, those are like the thanks for the creatine and the goofy thing is what I think of when I think of your stream all the time.
Yeah. There was a lot of wild stuff. Yeah, and then I don't know, you guys might not have remembered it, but there was a mod for Gary's mod, and then Sep Diggins, who is in my stream for a long time, he makes websites and stuff like that. He's a very smart guy, like very techie guy. He made an entire cinema with like you guys. I don't know if you've ever done this, but in Gary's mod, you can go into a movie theater basically, and there's different theaters, and you can play like YouTube videos or whatever, stream them on like a wall, and then there's like theater seats, and you can sit down and you can throw popcorn at people and like do all this like weird. It's like a little like a VR room kind of like that type deal. And he customized everything where one room had every SPL player. Like it had like Zapman and Wolfie and like everyone, their portraits on the walls. And there was like statues. And then you know when you were kids and you go to the movie theater, I guess it's still today probably, and they have like posters for new movies coming out. Like he edited them all to be me in some way. So like one was Titanic or something, and it was a picture of like me as Leonardo DiCaprio in the Titanic. Like it was a whole theater. And so like if I ever was streaming, and if I like people would go in there on their own and watch my stream together, like watch my stream in the server on Gary's mod or whatever, and like hang out and chat with each other. Or sometimes I'd go in there in between rank queues, or if the game was down, and we'd just like run around and do stupid stuff. So like it was pretty wild. There was a lot of
so
crazy
cool.
stuff. Yeah.
The other thing about your stream too, you would always find, I feel like every once in a while, like someone brought up the farming simulator, you just play the most random games ever. And then what was that game that you played that it was like, am I misremembering that you like build bridges or something? Was that you?
Polybridge.
Yeah. You played that a lot as well. There's so many random games and stuff like that you always play that always made me laugh. I would just tune in your stream and you'd be playing the most random thing ever. I'd be like, what the heck are you doing? And you're like, I just found this the other night. It's sick.
Yeah. Basically, every time like something was going on where like Smite was down or something, I'd like try to find a different game. And I'd go to like games that were interesting. If they looked really cool, I'd just buy them and play them if they're on discount or whatever. And then sometimes if they were like a little more pricey, I'd be like, "There's no way I play this game unless someone donates." And then like literally like 30 seconds later, someone donates like $40, and I'm like, "Well, I guess I'm playing this game." So then I downloaded it and would play that game. And then I have like a pretty addictive personality, I guess, for that stuff. So like a lot of times I'd end up playing that game like literally all night until like 6 a.m. So that happened a lot.
Yeah, I remember I bought you this one game. I forgot what it's called. If I look at my Steam list, it's like some like role playing game, and you played it with me like twice. And I just thought it was so fun. We played for like 10 hours. Like it was like it's not role playing, but it's like an RPG. Like I forget what it's called, but yeah, I remember that.
I think
too.
it was like a top down game, and you like I think you get items and stuff and level up a little bit or something.
Yeah. I just forgot what it was called. I played that game so much. I played that game with Herwind as well.
I think it was like kind of like a budget Diablo type game, like just like a smaller version of something like that.
Did you play Diablo? This one that came out?
I do, but like I played a lot for a little while, and then now I've slowed down because basically like I'm not like, as I kind of alluded to, I'm not like a huge Diablo type gamer, but like I was playing with my friends Mikey and Davey, so we'd play a lot. But the problem is in that game is like once you get towards the end, like there's no incentive to doing more. It's like I'm like doing nightmares at like super high level, but it's like what more am I getting out of this? Like nothing. Like there's the same items, like the lower nightmare tiers or whatever. Like it's just so like there's not like a true end game. So I've like kind of slowed down.
Yeah, I died in hardcore at 82 because the Blizzard server disconnected. Sam and Best, my brother they both got 100.
I saw that.
Did you see Did you see that there was like a big controversy with the statue thing or whatever?
Yeah.
They're supposed to be on it, but they're
really?
My brother said they're redoing it though, so they're good now, I think. But yeah,
see, that's crazy because they announced they're like the first 1,000 are gonna be on this statue in the game, and I'm like, okay, surely they have some system in place to like easily put who's the first 1,000, right? It's like no, they're using tweets. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like
it has to be in their API at some point, like somehow I feel like, but yeah,
it has to be like, or they can. I mean, I just don't understand if they didn't have something in place, like how, like you literally announced this like before the game even came out. Like, I don't know. That was crazy. There was a bunch of people. There was like people who linked. They were like, I was literally the 14th person to hit 100 on hardcore, and I am not on the statue. I'm like, how is that possible?
No, my brother was talking to that guy, I think, actually, as well, because it's insanity. But yeah.
So it's good, though. It's a good game.
I wanted to go back to the Smite Season 3. Do you remember how Eager, like how me, you, and Bess kind of went over to Eager? I remember you were talking to Divios as well. I remember Divios subbed for us that 1 week in Season 2 in Soul Lane because Meerkat had to go on vacation or something.
Yeah. I think I always liked Divios' play. And then
Divios had gotten kicked before that, right? On TSM, was that what they were?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what happened exactly. I don't know if he got kicked or if he left or whatever happened. He probably got kicked, but I don't know the full story actually. But I remember Meerkat had to go on vacation and he subbed like scrims for us for like 2 weeks, I think. It was like during a downtime between the LAN and just regular SPL or whatever. But do you remember like how, because what I remember Season 2 Worlds, I remember I roomed with Zap and I got along really well with him there, but I never talked to him about playing on a team with him that entire event, which is funny. And it didn't happen until after that Worlds event. I remember, I think at the very last night you messaged me and you were like, what do you think about playing with like Zap? Because I think you were the one who you messaged him first, I think, about it.
Probably.
That's what I think. And then I was like, yeah, I'll be down. And then, because you were talking to Divios, I think, as well. You kind of orchestrated, I think, the entire team, is from my memory, at least. Because you were talking to Divios, and then you messaged Zap, because I remember at the COG Invitational, we all got along really well with Zap. I remember we were talking to him a lot there. And then you just thought it'd be a good idea. But
I think the other, that was like when the other Eager was kind of like falling apart too. And I
Yeah.
think like I was like totally cool with the fact that he was like, look, like I just want to play under the Eager name because it's my brand or whatever, and like they can't really give you a lot, but like, are you cool with that? And I'm like, yeah, I don't give a shit. And he's like, great. And then like everyone kind of just was interested in playing, and then it just kind of happened, I guess.
Yeah, that team was. I loved that team so I had so much fun that year. We
Yeah.
started out. Remember how bad we started though? We beat like what were they called? Flex, I think. Like week 1, we beat them, and then we just lost like 4 games in a row, I think, or 4 sets,
I
and
believe it.
we did really bad. And then I remember it was the week that we played against Enemy and was it Enemy and was it LG or whatever? What was the team that Andy was
Soar?
on? Soar? No, it was the Andy team, I think.
The Andy team was still LG, I think. Yeah.
Was it LG or was it?
Mhm.
It was either Soar LG. We played Enemy was one of the teams, and then there was Soar LG, and we were like 1-4, 2-4, and I remember we all wanted to go to Sweden really bad, and like if we did well that week, we can make it. But that week that it ended up in, my brother was playing at Mandalay Bay for league, and I had to miss that tournament to play. I stayed home. Everybody in my family went. I stayed home so I could play SPL that week, and we beat Enemy, and it was either LG or Soar that week, and we ended up going. We were like 4-4, and we put ourselves in a really good spot to make Sweden, I remember. And everybody thought we were garbage, like really bad until that week. And that's when we whipped out like the Sobek Awilix combo, the classic, and the Fenrir Zeus.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Sobek Scylla, you said it, Mike, Sobek Scylla Awilix, and then the Fenrir Zeus combo. That was just insane.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I remember that.
Dude, I remember at the start of that team, everybody from like the outside was like, "Oh yeah, Zap's a rager. Divios is apparently a rager. Pern's a hothead. That team's gonna blow up in like 2 weeks or something." Because back then it was like normal to just have roster changes like instantly all the time. And I remember you guys had a bad start, and everybody was instantly like, "Yep, that's done. They're screwed." And then you guys did so well the rest of the year.
Yeah, we literally had the worst start you could possibly think of. It was so bad.
Yeah. I don't think anyone was really mad about like the bad start though. I mean, obviously we want to do better, but I don't think anyone was like pissed. I think we're all just like kind of like, we're just, we just got to try different stuff.
Yeah, we figured it out eventually. I feel like that's like my team this year. You probably didn't follow much, but we had a terrible start. Like I think we were 5-5, and we ended up doing pretty well in playoffs or whatever. But everybody thought we sucked as well this year. But then we ended up figuring it out at the end. But it sometimes just takes time. Like you can't always just be insane right off the bat. Like you have to kind of figure the team out and just
Well, I think you got to be comfortable playing with each other too. Like, there's definitely like an element when you start playing with someone, you're like, and I think you see it a lot. Like, I see it a lot in my workplace where when people are new, they're like, "Oh, I don't want this person to regret their decision of like picking me or something," like, and then you play a little nervous or just do some weird stuff. You kind of got to like cruise in, like get comfortable and like not worry about what other people think and stuff, and then start like figuring out what works best with each other.
Also helps you build an identity that way, like really like find a style that works for you and like go through enough mistakes that you actually learn lessons from them. Because I think if you play like too conservatively, like too safe, like there's a bunch of teams, at least in Smite, who are just play like pick off a tier list type of thing, and then when metas change, they don't really have that thing to fall back on where they're like, "Oh, like we know this works for us when our back is against the wall," type of thing.
Yeah.
That was my favorite thing about playing with you. Like one of my favorite things was that like you were just gonna play what you thought was good. Like you didn't let anybody else influence the way you thought about the game, which I feel like is a big detriment to a lot of players. Is that they just let other people influence like how they think about the game. Like if you think something's good and no one else does, like if you think it's good and you're doing well on it, you should just keep playing it, in my opinion, because it's working for you. And until you like lose a bunch of games or like it doesn't work out, then like why would you stop? And I feel like a lot of people like will try something once and they won't continue to try it and like actually see the results of it like do well, because I feel like that was one thing I really enjoyed about that was like the first team, the Eager team, where I was always kind of like that too. I like trying things out. Like I feel like a lot of players like you and Divios especially, I feel like were also players who just would try things out. Like Divios played a bunch of Ravana, remember? And everybody thought Robin was like garbage or whatever. And like Robin with Red Pot turned out to be like one of the best characters. Or like when you played like your Crit Rat like in season 2, everybody thought Crit Rat was like useless. And you're like
That was
zooming
so
around, like
broken, man.
just
That
one
was so
shot
broken.
critting everybody, and like like
Yeah,
stuff
well,
like
it was
that
just-
was great.
It's just yeah, well, because it's just different. Like I think Crit Rat was definitely broken, and people just didn't know how to play it, so no one played it. But like, it's really like you're just terrible until you get Golden Bow and like maybe like one pen item, and then you can literally 1v5. But like you were like, and people just Smite. Like everyone wants to be like really powerful right away. And like I get it. Like there are a lot of metas where like that makes the game so much easier, and like you dictate the pace and whatever. But if you don't necessarily like feel super comfortable with the gods that do that at that time, there's definitely other ways you can like compensate for a pick that maybe is a little less traditional, takes a little bit longer to get online. It's like there's ways you can play like, look, we just need to not lose for 15 minutes. If you can just not lose, we don't need to be like, you can't be down like 10 plus K, but we're not going to be up like or even. Just like keep me like plus or minus 5K. And we get to that 15-minute mark, we're going to win the game. Like, then you can definitely do that. Like, there's a bunch of different situations that are kind of similar to that. But a lot of people just aren't capable of like having that thought and like, or the confidence, I guess, or just, I don't know. They definitely follow the tier list.
I think they get frustrated in scrims is the
Yeah.
big thing. Like that happens too, especially like if you tell another teammate like, "Hey, I think this is good. You should try this." It'll be the classic like they play it one game, they get ganked early, they get behind, they're like, "Yeah, I just don't think this pick's good." Like, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, no, that for sure happens. And yeah, that happened to us too at times, because I get it. It's like sometimes it's frustrating, but like you just got to go with it for a while and like figure it out.
I'm actually curious, something we were talking about last night. I don't know how much you followed, because even back then we were in different regions from Twig. But something I had learned about Twig and then I kind of reflected on, and I feel like you were one of those players that I feel like super early on, you actually got, I don't want to say scapegoated, but I feel like people were very like polar end of like either DJ is really sick or this guy's a complete scrub who gets carried. Like, I feel like it was such like a polarizing opinion on you. And looking back, I feel like something that gets brought up even today is kind of jungle play styles. Like you'll have junglers like maybe Twig or maybe Sino's known for this now, where they're willing to like go in first, be engagers, like really get the pace of games going. And I feel like you were one of the original junglers that I felt like really did that. And I think when people think about that, they think about like this like full tank like warrior jungle. But I remember you doing it even as like Bastet or something. You would like start team fights like if you thought it was good. Yeah, Kali, like you would just go like as soon as you saw an opportunity. And back then that was really rare because it was like I think Andy and Gars and Adapting, they were like the like big like household name junglers, whatever you want to call it, and they were all like cleanup players. And I was kind of curious about kind of your mindset with that, and what kind of led you to that play style, or just how you saw the game back then.
Yeah. Well, I think no, that's very accurate. Is like I think the big thing is like I was always the strat caller on all the teams. Like even in sports that I did that, and then in like Counter-Strike, that's like all I did. Like that's what I was known for, was like being an in-game leader. And then when I came to Smite, I was like, I have to do that because like most people don't even know what an in-game leader is. Like they just like click the buttons and do the things. And so I was like, well, okay, so like I got to do that. Now sitting back and like trying to like just wait for my perfect opportunity and be like, okay, this person's beats down, this person's ult's down, like just playing for myself, like that really wasn't gonna ever be successful if like I also had to like call strats and initiate and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, well then I just need to like a lot of these times just like go in and get things started. And if I die, but like at least maybe I set my team up, because a lot of times it's not even like a lot of times it's like who initiates well is gonna win. Like if you just kind of sit around and wait for something to happen, even if you have like the better team or a lead or something like that, you just get screwed. So like having the foresight to be like, okay, we're going to do this and then we're going to engage when we see this. Okay, go. And then like you initiate it, like that just sets everything up for success. So like I was totally down for that. Like obviously if you watch me play ranked in an ideal world, I love playing hyper carries and like running around and like cleaning up and like winning the game for my team. But like in the competitive setting, it just was better for the teams, I felt like, to like maybe again pick like a Fenrir And like I didn't build full tank at all. Like I built like what was cost effective like damage items. But I would be more than willing to like jump in, ult, or Aegis first and eat a bunch of stuff and then like ult, whatever, and then like get something set up the fight and maybe I survive with like 1% life or I like die, but at least we're like in a good spot to then win the game or at least win the fight. So yeah, and a lot of people like will view it different ways. Like I think to untrained eye, I guess they're like, "Oh, that guy's a scrub. He just died first thing in a team fight." You're like, "Okay," but then like, what happened after that person died? They like
People
won the game.
love KDA watching, especially like you could make like 5 good plays, die at the start of every fight, and then if your team throws at the end, they're like, "Wow, this guy was 0-5. Like, what was he doing all game?"
That's the
Yeah.
classic for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Oh, go ahead.
I just want to mention one quick thing about the Aegises. I remember it was just when you were Cabrakan specifically. I don't know if you remember. You always had like the craziest Aegises as Cabrakan. Like there was one game, I think we're against like Agni, and like you like blinked on him in mid. He dashed away, and then like they had like their jungler. There was like 4 people there, and they all dropped their entire kit on you, and you Aegis, and then we just instantly wiped them. Like you Aegis literally everything. I don't know why. Is every time you're Cabrakan, I just have like so many memories of you being Cabrakan, just being like, I just Aegised everything, and then we just killed them all literally right after. It was so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love those plays. I feel like those plays are super underrated, and like a lot of people don't usually. I like give people credit for like baiting stuff like that. Like the other player was really good at that. I feel like at the time was Iraffer. Like a lot of people always thought he was doing like stupid things or whatever, but he always set up his team really well. I feel like as well, like back on Energy and Epsilon from watching their games back then.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the way you get away with like, or you learn how to do that too from a non-competitive standpoint is like when you play ranked, it can be frustrating sometimes, but you push your limit like as much as you can and like try to like teeter the edge of like being too crazy and just crazy enough. Whereas a lot of the more traditional junglers, again, like the adaptings and stuff, where it's like obviously they're phenomenal, but they're like instead of like teetering that edge, they'll just not go in at all because they're like, this looks like a crap situation. I sit back, my team sucks and we lose. Like, like I don't know, you really got to push the edge sometime and realize that you can get away with some like crazy stuff and eat a lot of things, and then like the outcome is normally really good as long as your team like follows up on what you're doing.
I feel like it's so much easier for specifically like your other frontliners, the support solo, to play off a jungler who's willing to do that. Like it's night and day how the game feels as well. Because when you have like 3 people who are a threat to start a fight, it's so much harder for other teams to deal with because like suddenly you have to worry about like, okay, like can we stop that jungler from blinking? Can we stop that solo laner from blinking? Like, oh well, like what happens if their support just like stuns our support and he's just dead instantly? Like it just adds so much more complexity to team fights. I don't know. Do you remember it was like I think it was regionals after group stage season 3? Do you remember it was like the little team interview they did? I think it was the 2 of you and Steve that did it. Mm-hmm. There was something I wanted to ask you about that. There were a couple things actually, because again, this was just from my perspective. Like my friend group back then was like the young, like I guess the quote unquote younger guys, like Baskin and Benji. They were like the mechanical type of players they just believed in like you just push your buttons better equals you win. And I feel like you guys were one of the first teams to really just outthink, outsmart, outstrategize people. And I remember there was something you had said in that interview that I remember sticking with me because back then I feel like team environment wasn't really weighed that heavily. And I think people gave Zap this reputation of kind of being like a hothead or very like stubborn, argumentative. And I remember you had said something that was like, Zap, the way I like criticize teammates is like I'm always gonna like get on people or like try to like push the best out of them or something along those lines. And you're like, if I'm being negative and you're being negative, everybody is going to hate their life and like not want to show up. So I need you to be like the positive guy, encourage people, be like, nice play, good rotation, that type of stuff. Did you learn that from CS or is that something that kind of came through your Smite career?
I think it's 2 things. A, you learn it in life for sure, because it's no different, right? When you're in a group of friends or playing sports, like you don't even have to be playing sports, just a group of friends. You can only have so many people that kind of like are, point things out or be negative at times. If like everyone was doing that, it'd be a terrible environment. No one would hang out with each other. And the same is true in sports. Like a lot of times it's normally the coach who's pissing everyone off, and then the players kind of hype each other up, and like so you can deal with the coach being annoying. And then in Counter Strike for sure, like I mean, when I started playing Counter Strike, I think the thing for a lot of people was like I'm this like young kid that was like the in-game leader, and I would yell at people, and I was like very like mean and like just like at times like I was not like a good person at times, and like that would be really hard for them because like who the fuck's this little kid like yelling at me? And so what happened was I ended up playing with like a ton of different people, right? Because like some people are like, I'm out of here, see ya. And then you like learn like what works and what doesn't work. And I'm not saying like I was perfect. There's still a million things I could do better. But I think you slowly get better and better about having a better team environment and working with people who have different mindsets. Um, and so, you know, you just get to the point where you're like, and I could see that like Zap would do things from time to time that were like really good. Like he had a good way of talking to people to make them feel better. Like he's a charismatic guy. Like he's a fun guy to be around. Like when he's in a good mood and he's like doing those little things, it really helps make other people feel more comfortable and like laugh and like have a good time. So like I knew I couldn't do it the way he did it. So I was like, look, you have been around the block a long time. Like I know you can do what I'm currently doing, but like I need you to do something I can't do. So like you do that because you're really good at it, and let me be like the asshole. And I think that will work best for everyone. And he did that for sure. Like he definitely like took that on and like did a good job. So
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I didn't play with Zap that long, and I was also so horrible back then, like first competitive team, all that type of stuff. And I remember like Zap would be so good at. I was like literally like a diamond player. I hadn't even made masters before they picked me up after Aurora had left. And I remember there was a scrim where we were like watching back the VOD, and Omega was like, "Yeah, don't you think you should like blink Gebot here? They're all grouped up. You could just get like a 5-man Gebot." It was like at a Gold Fury, and Zap was like, "I'm telling you, man, he just doesn't see it. He can't do it. He doesn't get it. Like he just doesn't have it in him." And I was someone like my sports background, like I responded really well to like very like blunt criticism. I really didn't like sugarcoating stuff. And the second he said that, it maybe not immediately in terms of my gameplay, but like mentally it like flipped a switch where I was like, yeah, like I hate this like reserved playstyle. Like if I see an opportunity, like I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna go for it if I think it's good. And it's just funny because when I had heard that interview between the three of you guys, it really resonated with me because I feel like it's also super important, like you said, like in life and jobs, whatever it is, like different people also respond differently to criticism. Like some people you can be very like blunt with and they really need that type of feedback, and other people really need more like positive reinforcement. And I feel like it's such a valuable lesson, not only in Smite, but like you said, like jobs, life, relationships, everything.
yeah, no, for sure. And I think that these are the little things that when you tell people you play games, they're like, oh, okay, so you sit in mom's basement and you eat Cheetos and you like play a game. That's cool. But like what they don't realize is like, okay, but actually you have been on multiple teams with people from all around the world, from all different walks of life, with all different personality types who respond to criticism in different ways and communicate in different ways. And you have had to figure it out, like how to make them come together and make the most of something and be successful as a group. So for the people who take on those challenges, which is the vast majority of the, you know, the upper echelon, the people that play in the SPL or go to these big tournaments for whatever game, you know, they've had to figure it out. So like that's an experience and a skill that they learn that other people don't necessarily learn or get to see as much. And so it's pretty underrated, I think, in like the online like kind of competitive gaming scene.
That's the one thing too. Like, if you don't figure it out, you don't last either. Like in
Yeah.
SPL or like anything. I feel like anything that involves any sort of competition, and probably even like other aspects of life too. Like, if you're not good at figuring something out, like you're not gonna last. Like I feel like I've seen so many players that have joined the SPL and have been really, really insanely good players, but they just can't figure it out with everybody else on it, like in a team environment. I feel like that's one of the hardest things to do. And I've always said, I even tell my team this right now, like if you want to be the best team, everybody has to be on the same page. And if you aren't on the same page as a team, you're never going to be the best team. And I feel like it takes a lot of effort from every single person on the team to get there. And it's not something that's going to happen overnight as well. Like even like season 3 for us, I felt like we were a really good team, and we ended up winning the tournament at the end of the year. Besides World Super Regionals, like we didn't get there like instantly. Like we had a terrible start, and like it took us a lot of time to get better as a team. And it's like that every year that I've played, and it's something that's really like you said, valuable to have, because without being able to do that, like I probably wouldn't have played as long as I've played now, because it's just like, and it feels so good once you get to that spot, or even if you don't get there, because it's really hard to get there. Just like you're at least, it feels like your team's working towards it and you're getting better. So
yeah,
I feel like that's also a really big reason that, like, when I say arguing, I feel like people take it to like the negative like connotation of it, but just being willing to like go through adversity together within a team environment or a work environment, whatever, like people I think from the outside will give, like, especially your guys' eager team back then, like I had mentioned, the like public perception was that you guys were like argumentative or stubborn, but the really positive side of that is that you're not afraid of confrontation, right? Like if you have 5 like super nice guys who like don't want to step on each other's toes, you're not really going to be able to problem solve, right? Like when things are going bad, you need somebody who gets that conversation going, and that's like, oh, why do you think this is good? Or maybe even like more blunt, like, I think what you're doing isn't that great, like I think you should try this, that, whatever. And I feel like when you're able to, like, everyone just has to know you have each other's backs. Like when you go into a team environment like that and you know that they're pushing you to try to like be the best version of yourself or to be the best version of your team, I feel like that's when, like, every team that I've been in where I've been lucky enough to win or do well, that's like the special ingredient or whatever, where you're able to take that sort of criticism in a really positive way. It definitely is a really nice life lesson.
Yeah, and I think that my biggest pet peeve when I was playing, especially in Smite, was that sometimes I'd be on teams where it was probably too nice to people, or they're just like really bad communicators, where like I'd be like, okay, you just died in lane. I lost this buff. Like this other, all these bad things are happening. So like, what do you want to do differently that maybe I can do differently to help you so we can do this, and like sometimes people would just be like, say nothing. And I'm like, okay, so we're just going to lose and no one's going to say anything. And we're just going to re-queue and hope that something else happens. Great. And like, that was so annoying to me. I was like, I'd rather you sit here and yell at me and like have an argument. Let's do that instead. Because this whole like not talking and just hoping something changes and we do better is not going to work out. So I think it's 100% important to have like a dynamic where you have a little bit of back and forth. And the same is true with like in these type of games with like picks and bans. Like I did a lot of like the pick and ban stuff on a lot of the teams. But like some of the teams, like people were like, okay, like what character should I play? I'm like, that's my job is not to tell you what character you're going to play. Like I can say like, this is the strategy we want to do. I can narrow it down to, I think these are good picks. But like when it comes down to it, like you tell me what character you want out of this thing that I think fits it. Like I need feedback from you. Like, cause I don't play your role like in this high of a like tier game or whatever, in this dynamic on our team, like you do. So like I need some feedback here. And the people who fail to do that, it's just, man, that makes it so hard.
The most tilting experience ever, I don't know if you ever get this, Aror, is like if you do prep and you're the one leading it and your whole team, like maybe they're listening in like a Discord call or whatever it was at the time, there will be people who like sit there and look through it. But I've had experiences where you like go through this prep, maybe you take a few hours on it, and then you go into the studio the next day and you get into the spot where you're like, okay, this is your pick, like, do you want this? And they're like, no, why would I do that? Like, that makes no sense. And then you're just like, we just went through this like last night for like 2-3 hours, and then they wait until the last minute. Or maybe it's like I think another example is people I feel like will be very, I don't know if the word is like passive with it, but I remember there was another thing you said of super regionals, because back then I think Max had said it was like the narrative of like, oh, General Payne is like calling everything. He's like micromanaging everyone on the team. He's like this insane shot caller. And there was something else that you said that was basically like, this isn't League. I can't click over to your lane, see what's going on, see where your wave advantage is, see like who's ahead, who has to back, where like what your TP situation is. And I feel like that was also a really valuable thing that a lot of players started to value. Where I know like I joined a new team in like season 4 on E United, and like the first thing that I said was like, I'm fine like having me and Scream like call objectives and call the map, but like I need information from everyone. Like I need to know like when you want to back, who you can kill, when you want to fight, like you just want to farm for a bit, like all this small stuff. And I feel like those are kind of the small details that, again, from the outside, I imagine you guys were like way ahead of your time and were just really good at back then.
Yeah, I think so. I think that it was so much easier on Eager because and you know, there was times where it was better than others, but in general, I think Zap's really good about saying like, look, like I'm really close to this item and then I want to fight.
Especially
Like,
game day. I feel like he was so good at that.
yeah, and or he's like, hey, like I don't want to fight right now. Like let me farm this for like whatever. And then like Divios was the same way when he was in a good mood. Like he was very good about being like, look, I'm about to get this void stone and like I'm unkillable. So like whatever. Or he'd be like, this buff's coming up, I want to fight on it. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so like it made it really easy because I also, and Aror is the same way. Like he was like, so really there was a minimum of like 4 people who were like actively saying something regarding like what is the possibility of things we can do next. And then it was like, I guess probably mostly my decision as to like which one we were going to act on. We're like, okay, let's do this and then this. And it makes it so much easier when you have that information. When you don't, when you're in the blind, like you can't even play the game. You're like, what am I supposed to do? Like I stare at your lane like through all these walls and like try to guess. Like I don't even know how to play like that. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever played a comp game where like people aren't given that type of information and you have to like prompt them? You have to ask like, how's your lane going? Like, do you need help? Do you want to fight? Like, I feel like anytime I've had to do that, my own like individual play also just falls off
Yeah.
a
Oh,
cliff.
yeah.
Like you just start missing stuff because you just start focusing on too much. Like it's impossible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for me, like I'll give an example right now. Like I feel like I was very lucky from like the Eager team all the way until season 7. Like I had like people that I was really like, a lot of the teammates that I had were really good at communicating things. And I remember season 7, like it wasn't that the team was bad, but it was just like a different style that I wasn't used to, and like the communication of things that I had in the past were just not there, and like it made me. It made me like I've talked about it before. It's made me a better player now because I like played in that situation and I've kind of learned how to play in that style more, and it like kind of expanded my play style and stuff like that. But like just people would like tell me like, yo, someone's coming under you or someone's like ganking your lane. Like I wouldn't even get that information, and then I would have to start prompting like, hey, is someone coming to my lane? Hey, is someone doing this? And like it makes you better, but it's hard to do that every single game because you have to focus on your lane and like other things in the game as well, and you can't, you're sometimes just going to miss like asking, and it's good to just have the information given to you without asking it. And I feel like it's definitely a good skill to have. And I feel like a lot of people should like strive to do that if they want to play competitively, because I feel like a lot of players don't understand how valuable it is because it doesn't directly impact them, but it does it like it doesn't directly impact them at like the current moment in their lane or whatever, but it impacts them for the game because it makes like the other lane that they're calling for stronger, so they don't die to a gank, and then the jungler doesn't get super fed, and then the jungler kills you because they killed them, and it turns into like a big mess. But I think it's super valuable to have that for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like it's such a strong domino effect as well because like, let's say it is an example where you're trying to play the comp that like wants to push the game longer and wants to scale. If you just think about like mentally the difference between like you're down 3k and people are really like positive about, okay, just like 1,000 more gold and I have this item, I'm super strong, I want to fight off that, versus like you're down 3k and nobody says a word, like the energy level in that team is so different. Like even just that I feel like can be the difference between winning and losing, because in one scenario you like know exactly what you're playing for, you're like excited, like, oh, we're about to get to the stage where we can do stuff, and then the other one it just feels like, oh, if we mess up
We're
once
losing.
the game's over. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and once people start getting kind of sad, they start talking less, and then you start losing more, and then they're more sad, and they talk
Especially
even
in scrims, it's
Yeah.
so bad. Yeah.
yeah. So you have to realize, like, okay, as you are getting more sad and talking less, the other team's getting happier and talking more. So like it's making it harder and harder to win, you know? So like you have to really fight that and be like, okay, even though I'm starting to get a little sad and I died and I lost my blue buff or whatever, like I'm gonna start talking more and more, knowing that like I need to match their level of communication to even have a chance of coming back here. So yeah, that stuff's crucial.
Um, the other thing I wanted to bring up too was like j- I can't remember. A lot of people always tell me they're really thankful. Like Shinto was telling me recently, we would always scrim like SCC teams, like on the Eager squad, or just like teams from other regions. Like I think we scrimmed a couple like LATAM teams and stuff. And I know I've talked to some of those players now, and they've all were like super thankful and like appreciative that we've done that. I feel like it's important to like do that every once in a while and just scrim teams from either other leagues or like right now I guess it would mainly be SCC. I feel like it helps other teams out and like get a different perspective as well. And I feel like we were like one of the first teams that kind of scrimmed more of those teams than other teams. At least that's what I feel like. I don't know if you
Definitely
agree,
were.
Mike,
For
but
sure
yeah.
were, yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think it was like your idea, which I think was really like a good idea for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in part, we didn't have a lot of choices because a lot of teams refused to scrim us,
That's true
which
too.
is kind of unfortunate. That was really, really unfortunate, and just with how small the Smite community is, like in the big picture, like in terms of like scrim potential, like it really kind of limits you. But then, yeah, like a lot of these other players, like you can get a lot of good ideas. Like even if you crush them, you're like, okay, well, like why am I crushing them? Like we do this really well, and so like we got to like make sure we like keep up on that because it works really well. Or like maybe they do this terribly, and so like if we can see another team like doing this like suboptimally, you can exploit that. Or every once in a while they'll pull out some weird combo, like maybe like I don't know, maybe they know of some like a Willick Sobek stuff or something like that, like I didn't know about, and I see them do it. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Maybe they still lose, but they were like, you're like, wow, that actually a pretty good combo. Like, so yeah, that's always a good thing. And plus, like the other thing is, if you really think about it, if you scrim like these teams and you show them like what your thought process is, the gods you like playing, the strategy, and then they start catching on, and you can still beat them when they know exactly what you're going to be doing, then you're probably pretty good at what you like doing. Like, so I think yeah, it's always nice to scrim some of those people, and I think you can still learn stuff from them. I think it's always best to just switch it up if you can, like, and play multiple different teams. That's why I hated the whole scrim partner thing back in the day. Like, where it's like,
Yeah.
these two teams are the only teams that play each other. I'm like, well, this is so dumb. Like, it was very annoying, but you can't like make someone change, I guess, in that way.
I
That
remember
doesn't.
having.
I just want to say the scrim partner thing. Like every team I've been on, like I've shot that down so fast. Like I feel like it's changed a lot more. I think I'd say like the last since it moved to LAN, I'd say like the last 4 seasons, people have been pretty good about scrimming multiple teams, which is what I like a lot. I feel like it always should have been that way in my opinion, but it's been a lot better than it was in the past. It was really, really bad. I remember the worst of the worst was in season 4, in my opinion. It just got worse and worse. It felt like as time went on. But yeah,
Well, and I think so some of it is like the players can do a better job, and like it really just hurts the game, in my opinion, when you do that. But also part of it, to be fair, is it falls on high res. Like you make these single elimination tournaments where people are playing like BO1s for their lives, or like at most a BO3. And it's like, well, if no one knows my one strategy that I think is really good that can beat them one time and it'll advance me in this tournament, then I'm never going to show them. Like, I'm going to play this one team and that's it. It's like, okay, well, let's make it double elimination. And now it doesn't matter because your strategy worked one time, but then you still lost the other game. So it's like, I think there's some tournament structuring that if you change it, it would decimate that whole thing, in my opinion.
Aurora, was your only time scrim partnering? Was it the Splice Worlds, right?
well, we still
we were
scrimmed Energy then, and I think one other team. But
Yeah,
we didn't. We like scrimmed you because the Splice Worlds, we were triple blocking. I think
Yeah.
we triple blocked. Like that's the only time I ever triple blocked. By the way, scrims too. That was an interesting time.
It was a good time.
Triple blocking. I don't think I ever told you this, DJ. We triple blocked and we were on throttled internet. So we were playing on 130 ping in the basement in what was it? Is it what? It's upstate New York somewhere. I forget wherever this place headquarters were. 130 ping on 60 hertz because they didn't have 144 hertz monitors, and we were also playing on 30 FPS in team fights, and we were triple blocking on that. It was literally so painful. I remember as soon as we got to branch off from what you asked me, Mike, but as soon as we got to Georgia for Worlds, I'm like, I need to go play somewhere with a normal computer. So we went to Battle and Brew. So I literally queued like Domination was like match of the day, and I'm like, oh my god, I can actually play the game now because I know what Smite looks like when it looks normal. I remember how painful it was. But we were triple blocking. We scrimmed you guys, Energy, and I think there was like one other like random team that we scrimmed as well there. But we only did the 3-man dual lane strat against you guys, and we didn't do it against any of the other teams. So I guess it wasn't like a scrim partner thing, but it was more that we only did it against your team. Kind of.
Yeah. Because it was, of course, it was the same for us. We played like maybe Dig and CLG or something. But I remember my perspective on the scrim partner thing was always different because like the first team I joined was Eager, and at the time they were like partners with AFK. So that was just like normal to me back then. And then I remember in season 3, it was like the same thing. I think like Soar and LG did it or something.
Yeah.
And I was on the lower end team for most of season 3, so we would like always bounce around. I think before your guys' group stage, we scrimmed you a lot. And it's so funny, like, the, like, scrim metas, what everybody calls it, develop, and, like, people get so angry. Like, I remember when you guys developed it was, like, Hog with Erlang support with Ra. You guys would do that, like, every game. And I remember it would just own us. And the, like, mental breakdowns that happen, like DJ said, like, when you know a team is going to do something and you're, like, trying to stop it and you still can't, you either, like, reach a point of like a mental breakdown, or you reach a point of acceptance of like, oh, what they're doing is pretty good, like we should probably like try to understand it, like learn from it, all that type of stuff. And I feel like back then people were so stubborn. I think this was like literally right after you stopped playing, DJ. It was like fall of season 4. I think we started the scrim partner stuff on E United, and it was literally like back then I was 20, 21 years old, and all my teammates were 17. Like I was there like the only guy, and I had like 4 high schoolers with me.
Nice.
And there was a scrim we played against Auror's team. You were on Trifecta then, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we played Mori Vamana. We played Mori Vamana mid jungle, and we like they killed them in mid, and then they like F6'd the game and restarted it. And then we killed them in mid again. And then in the post-game lobby, Scream typed "get babied on," like just as a troll. He just said "get babied on," and then you guys like I think
Herwin got really mad.
He got pissed. He like canceled the scrims. I like messaged Kiki on him like, "Hey man, I'm sorry. Like they were just messing around. I didn't want to like piss you guys off." And then Kiki was like, "It's fine, but we play in a couple weeks, so we probably won't scrim each other for a while." And then we had a good start, and I think we beat like Soar and some other team at the time. And we were like, oh, we're probably going to end up finishing like top 2. And it's it's single elimination to qualify for Worlds because you would get a bye to semis if you were top 2. And then if you won that best of 5, you just go to Worlds. And back then, like, buys at Worlds were OP as well because you would skip like the little best of 1s or whatever. So it was like instant semifinals. So I was like, oh, I guess we just scrim partner now. And it was like the pettiest thing. It was literally because they stopped scrimming us because we typed "get babied on." And it was just such an immature scene back then. Like, it's so stupid how all of it played out.
Yeah. Yeah, that stuff is frustrating. I will say that early. So 2 things. A, the Erling Shen Raw combo was insane. Like
so
absolutely insane.
Everybody thought the god was broken as well.
Yeah,
or terrible, I mean.
I was on the wrong side of history on that one for sure.
I mean, I also didn't. I was like not convinced at first.
You would have let me play it. I was like, I literally begged you and Zap, and you and Zap were like, that god is garbage. Because that's literally what everybody was saying. Everybody's like, that's the worst god they've ever released in the game. And I'm like, how is the god bad? He can cripple, knock up, and taunt. He's the most broken character.
Yeah, well, and I think the thing is that like obviously you played a lot of the game like outside of scrims, so at some point we're like, okay, look, you played outside of scrims, you own people with it, let's give it a shot. So we eventually gave it a shot, and it's like, yeah, that ranged cripple is just like broken. Like I mean, like you have someone like Best too, where it's like, I mean, obviously it's not super difficult to hit off of like a root cripple, but the fact that he could like preemptively see it happening and just time it, where it's like easy, just throw one out, throw an ult, see you later. Like and I think the other thing that helped us in that regard is that like you said, I think a lot of us, maybe me in particular, but probably Roar too at times, and even Divios at times, were kind of polarizing in a sense of like, oh, these guys are idiots, or oh, they're really smart. Is that like we would do things and we would own people, and then people would still be like, nah, like that. There's no way that that's actually good. Like they would just like keep letting us do it, and then like you said, at some point people either like just like they just like lose it and they like implode, or they're like, okay, actually it's real. Like
I have such a vivid memory of like Kabam was our coach, and it was like me, Kiki, Cyclone, and I think Oceans and Skeely. And I remember we like double blocked against you guys. It was like maybe a day or two before you guys flew to go to your group stage. And I remember like me and Kiki were asking Skeely and Cyclone like, hey, like how come you guys don't buy Hog? Do you not think it's good? Like all this, and they were like, no, it's cheesy, it's a gimmick, like it won't work in a real game, they're just down a relic, like they're not even getting their own buffs, like something like that. And then I don't know if it was me or Kiki, but we were basically just like, okay, well, from our perspective, you're behind every single game, Divios then out rotates you don't even get a chance to play team fights because you're just behind. They have a Hog for objectives with a raw snipe as well. It's literally impossible to contest. And if we do contest it, your support, who's me, just gets Erlang comboed and I'm insta-dead. Like, I'm just gone. And I'm like, yeah, the game feels pretty hard to play, I'll be honest. And they're like, no, just wait. Like, group stage, like, it's going to be horrible. They're going to lose every game. Like, it's going to be trash. And then you guys just, like, completely wipe the group stage. And then we were like, okay, it's, like, time to do what we should have done before and, like, actually learn from this, like, see what we can take from it. It was a nightmare.
Yeah. I think there's always with us a delayed acceptance from other people.
Yes.
I think the Sobek Scylla Wheelix thing was the same thing.
It helped us so much too. Sorry to interrupt you. The group stage, everybody thought the invading. Is he okay? The group stage, we invaded and everybody thought it was bad. And then we went to super regionals and we invaded again, and people were like, oh, this is good. Because I remember too, I told Best, I'm like, we invade, we're gonna wreck them in this first set. And we did, we wrecked Flashpoint or whatever. And then we ended up playing Store. And they didn't invade in their first set, but I'm like, they're going to try to invade, and we're just going to pick the most pressure possible. Yeah. And we picked Sylvanas Zeus, and we just completely ran, because they tried to do exactly what we did, but we just were way stronger because we had, like, way better characters.
Yeah, well, we just thought it way further ahead. Like, at first, like, people didn't believe that it was real, right? So we could do whatever we wanted to with, like, the worst characters pressure-wise and get away with it, because, like, people just would refuse to, like, try to actually. You guys would invade
as like Shin Basta.
Yeah, we could do anything.
Yeah,
and then when people finally were like, okay, maybe we should fight back, then we would just be like, okay, fight back, and then we'll pick again like a Sylvanas Zeus where you cannot fight back. Like we'll just pick the high pressure things and do the same thing. And then they were like, oh shit, now what do we do? But it was too late at that point. Like it's like, yeah, those are good times.
Do you remember the world strat you guys did? Because I remember, so the super regionals, you guys dumpstered everybody and you were like first seed going into world. I think from my perspective at least, like maybe European players would feel differently, like you guys were the favorite going into the tournament from my perspective. And I remember everybody in scrims tried to basically copy, like everyone was playing catch up because like you said, it was that delayed acceptance of like, oh, this is good, here's why. It's not even just copying it, it's like actually understanding how to play with it. I feel like was also a really big difference. I think Aror has mentioned before, like to me, Obey was really the only team that like understood it and took it further. Like they ended up having, I think Twig would buy the Hog so Harry could go TP and then they would like win solo and try to play off that. But I remember like when you guys did I think you either 3 or 4 man started duo, and I think Divios would like scout to see if they would invade, and then he would let them, and he would walk like around them solo side so they didn't see it. He would do their blue, and then you guys would wipe duo side, and then literally proxy. And if they tried to do your speed to their own speed, you, Aurora, and Best would just like 3-man fight them. And I remember like even now, I don't know if there's ever been like, I mean, you kind of can't do it now because you have like Invaders Curse and a bunch of other stuff, but like the level of like we're just willing to go further than you are with this, I feel like was so ahead of its time. It was so fun to watch.
Yeah, and that was part of that was unfortunate because again, like we were limited with who we can play, so we didn't see as much and try as much as we wanted to.
Who didn't want to scrim you guys back then? Do you remember?
Everyone.
Really?
People hated scrimming us.
Yeah, no one wanted to play us. And then part of it was our bad. Like there was definitely times where we'd like F6 and move on.
Oh, that's right.
The Pern reset. That's what everybody called it.
Yeah. But to be fair, like the game back then, the way it was made was there was a lot of like importance on the early game. I mean, there's always been importance on the early game of Smite, but it was like amplified.
It was definitely exaggerated for sure.
Once in like before, like it's like post Invaders Curse and pre Invaders Curse, because I feel like pre Invaders Curse, the early game could dictate the entire game. You could win in the first 5 minutes. It's not like that anymore because Invaders Curse exists. But that's why it was like that. Then sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. And then so that's why I thought like honestly early F6s weren't that bad, because it's like this is a very important to the game, like aspect of the game, so you need to like perfect it. But the reality is like we probably could have played out some more games just to like if that's what they wanted to do, fine. And like it would have helped us too. But yeah, I think our strategy was like actually pretty good there. I think again, we kind of got sabotaged in my opinion by like the structure of the tournament, because it was like, look, we got this strategy and I think it's pretty good. And like sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not. Like we didn't really anticipate like the traveler shoes or whatever as much as we should have. And like so like, and we still almost won that set. And if we win that set, we probably win the tournament. And if we lose that set and there's a lower bracket, I still think we probably win that tournament, because
you definitely would have gotten to the finals. I think.
Because we were very good at adapting to various situations. And like in my opinion, like that's what like video games and sports are about. Like it's not about who comes with like the one thing that's like insane. It's who like can adjust to new things on the fly well as like a group. And so it's just, you know, obviously you can't make excuses. It is what it is. But I just think that it's always beneficial for the community and for the teams and for competition to like see people's response to adversity, not just like, well, sorry, like, you know. So
I feel like especially then, that was still the era of like, I mean, Energy, of course, like they weren't idiots, you know, they were like a smart team. They like had a good play style for what they wanted to do. But that was still the era of just like, they just pressed their buttons better than everyone. Like they were just better players, like as a unit, than pretty much every team. And that was really like, I think that matchup was really anticipated, because I was always like, even within, like I said, like my like friend group, like coming up, like the newer players into the SPL, I was always the guy who like really believed in like the mental side of things. And I like really wanted to see that matchup, because I felt like that was like the start of the turning point in Smite, where people like, they really had to value like how much thought you put into the game, and like going past just like, oh, this guy is just like sick at pressing his buttons, like he hits every Thor hammer. It just like, it started to become like less like who gives a damn about that, and more just like, how do you think, how do you play, like how do you operate as a team. And I feel like there were like so many lessons to take from that Eager team for sure.
Yeah.
The one thing too that I want to talk about that tournament, it just sucks. I know I hate making excuses, and I never really brought it up like after the tournament was over, but I got so sick that tournament, and I feel like one of the main reasons why we did so well as a team is our prep. Like that team, and then like that team in season 5 and 6 Splice, I feel like those 3 teams I were on were always the best at prep, and I feel like the way we prepped like helped us so much in the matches, because we always had a response to what the other team was gonna do, because we basically would go through every scenario and almost every single thing, and like we would have it, we would never get caught off guard, and nothing would ever surprise us, because we're like, this could actually happen to us. We would always have something like in the back pocket, and I feel like our prep was completely ruined, and we did our prep was so like minuscule to like any of the other prep that we did that entire year, just because I literally was like I couldn't get out of bed for like 2 days or whatever.
And
It definitely
I
sucked.
remember that. Yeah, I remember that now. Aurora was not in good shape. He just was like down bad, and I'm pretty sure at least one other person on our team least was feeling sick too.
Best was as well.
Yeah. So it really made it difficult because I can't speak to like Aurora's other teams and your other team's PBM, and like obviously you didn't really play with me, but like I can say like from my perspective, like I would ad nauseum have meetings with like, and Aurora was like totally down to do it too. Other people probably got frustrated, but like we would our picks, like there was an if then statement for every possible thing that can happen. Like there was not, I don't think I ever played a game in Smite where I was like, well, I don't know what to do here. Like there was an if then for everything. We knew exactly what we were doing in every scenario, like every time. Like
we always had something covered, and like I know teams that I've been on, like even like recently or whatever, like people don't want to put as much time into it, which is completely fine because everybody has their own way of wanting to like prepare for a match and like do things, and like they want to kind of do it in different ways. But like those 3 teams, like the preparing, like Eager was the first team, and then I'd say season 5 and 6th place were also the same way. Those like 3 teams that are on, like the prep mattered so much going to the games, and I feel like we would literally just win off our prep in probably like 80% of our games. That's what it felt like, at least. Like we also played well too, but like we were just way more prepared than the other team, and they just had no answer for us, and we had an answer for everything that they would try to do to us as well at the same time.
It's so funny you guys mentioned that, because I feel like there isn't even that much overlap between like the players that you guys have played with and the players I've played with, but I also I like that sort of prep where you like you said, you have those if then statements. And I still I think to this day I still have never had a team that can like follow me with that, which is fine. Like everybody doesn't have to like lead that conversation, but I'll have it even like before the most recent tournament where I like pull up a Google like doc and I'm just like, okay, like this is like meta bans or something, and it's like, okay, well, like here's if they target bans a couple characters, like here's if they ban like this, like here's if they leave everything open, and that's like, okay, if they leave everything open, do we want to ban one of these so they can't 2-for-1 us? And then like you go through all these scenarios, and I could do that for like hours and like follow it, and some people just like they get lost, and it's fine, like everybody doesn't have to follow that, but to me the annoying part is if you don't listen enough to at least like understand what I'm trying to accomplish, like how I want to play against the team. Like maybe you think you can like win through like solo pressure or something, or like maybe you think their support plays super out of position and you can just like play like front to back kill comps, like whatever the case may be. It's so frustrating where like people don't just at least understand like we're going into the set, we're going to try to do this, and like here's how we're going to win. And it just like, if you go into game day and they're like, oh, why are we doing this? Why are we picking this character? That's like, I don't want to use the word tilting because like I'm not getting tilted before the set even starts, but it is frustrating. Like that level of prep, I feel like it should almost be expected, I feel like, of pro players.
Well, I think the biggest thing is you take away like a whole situation that can add stress. Like you literally like picks and bans don't exist for you anymore because you already did the picks and bans. Like that's done. Like we would have like I'd have a packet and like a bunch of papers, and I'm like, okay, here we are. Like just follow this down. Like I don't need to think. I don't need to do it. I'm just literally following my list, and like I'll be like, okay, yeah, we're gonna pick this god here. You still want? Yep. Okay, cool. Lock it in. Like it's like there's really like very minimal stress or even thought.
Have you ever had a set where you guys didn't do that, and then you get like you lose a game, and then everybody has a different opinion about like why you lost the game, right? Like maybe one person thinks like, oh, we need more pressure, or the other person thinks like, oh, we just messed up, we should run it back. And I feel like that type of chaos, especially if you only get like 5 minutes between games, and then especially now, Aurora, like we have to like give our sides pretty quickly. Like if you have to add in all that extra stuff, like it gets so bad because it could even lead to like an argument mid-set that's just like not productive. It's like arguing about like, oh well, we would have won that game if you didn't fucking int here,
or
like,
just talking about like what happened in the last game. Like it doesn't matter. Like just worry about what we're doing the next game, and like take general things from the last game, but not like specific plays. I don't like that because it feels it's really hard to get everybody like communicating about stuff, and then when you make someone feel bad about something that they probably know that they did bad already, it just doesn't help anything, it feels like, most of the time. And the other thing I want to say too is it happened to us on Eager. I don't know if you remember, but remember when we played Brazil and we lost the first game because we just wanted to like go in and like we thought we could just beat them with whatever we played. I played like Nike support, you played like Afro.
Right.
Like the funny thing is we wanted to like gaslight the other team into like thinking we played what's funny is they banned Afro in the next set that we played, so it worked like in a sense or whatever. But we also lost to Brazil in game 1 out of a best of 3. And Divios, I remember Divios' face after we lost. I'll never forget Divios' face. And he's like, "We're not hiding anything. We're not hiding anything." And he just kept saying it. And he's like, "You're picking your best character, and we are not losing to these guys." And it's like Divios' voice. I'll never, dude. That is like one of my favorite memories. Even though we didn't do the best at that LAN, it is still something that makes me laugh to this day. When he's like, we are not hiding anything. We are picking the best characters that we have. I don't even know if you remember that, but it's so funny. I was like, every time I think about it, it makes me laugh. But
yeah, I remember that. That was good times.
Was that the Guan Yu land that everybody gave you shit for?
I don't remember which land it was.
I remember it was. I don't remember which land. Yeah, it was that land or whatever. I played like Raven support as well, and like died at their blue buff, like against Dig or whatever. It was so bad.
Was that the land that like Sunder was broken?
Yeah.
Dude,
I think so.
That was probably my least favorite land of all time, and like I just think that was so dumb. Like it was just such a dumb version of Smite.
It was a Sunder that could kill you too, right?
Yeah.
Like now you can't. Yeah.
It was also the rituals too, right? It was that season. Yeah, the rituals where you could, or was that the season? Yeah, it was that.
That was 3. No, that was 3,
it 3? No, wasn't that 4? Oh,
I don't think so. Yeah, I think it was 3 because that was like the hour-long like enemy game or whatever.
I just remember everyone picking Ravana and they just jump on your head and sunder you, and I was just like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
Was it 3? I swear it was 4. I think rituals were season 4 because from what I remember is that I could remember season 3's regular SPL season like very vividly, and I do not remember rituals being in the game.
Yeah. No, I think that was the time that I'm thinking of is definitely like after that was like 4. I don't know if it was like rituals, but I know that it was
rituals and Sunder.
It was Ravana Sunder, and like everyone was going to Ravana Sunder, and I was like, this is it's not even like, I don't know.
Everybody's blinking like Dragon Ball Z as well and like teleporting people.
I was so mad.
You might be right though, Mike. It might have been season 3, but I can't. I don't think it was either. It was either season 2 or season 4. It had to be. It couldn't be season 3. I don't think. At least from my memory.
For I don't remember it too vividly. I'm sure you guys will obviously remember it more, but I remember that split. Did you guys win season 4 regular season? I think you did.
Yeah, we did. I think Susano just came out, and I think you had like a bunch of 6 Susano games. I remember. I remember you went like 12-0 and like 10-0 on like 2. Like the week he came out, the first week he was playable in SPL, you played him, and I remember you loved his the pull or whatever, and you were just playing like you play Susano and Best would play like Giannis or like something, and you guys would always kill them for first blood in mid, and you got really fed like every single game. I can't remember what other guys he played with it, but I just remember you had like 2 insane Susano games, and then was it season 4 that he came out? I think it was, and then that's when you played Chonga Jungle in SPL for the first time as well. That split too, and you had like a couple crazy Chonga games. And that's why everybody thought you were gonna play like Afro and Chonga at that LAN or whatever, and that's when Robin got popular. But yeah, I remember. I think we were first seed. I think that's still one of the only regular. That might be my only regular season SPL split that I've ever won. Like in the regular season, was that season 4 in spring, which is crazy. Yeah.
What was I wanted to ask what your experience was at that time, like. After Worlds, then going into the new season, especially like I didn't know until now that you didn't really like that meta. how was your balance between that and also studying for school? It was the MCAT at that time, right?
Well, season 3 was the MCAT. Yeah, you
Oh, season 3 was.
So
Okay.
you going to Worlds, I remember you gave up streaming, right? Because you were studying for your was it the MCAT test that you were taking or something? And you basically said you could only scrim and study, and you're just gonna stop streaming. And that was all the way through Worlds, I remember.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and then I remember you stopped streaming, and then you did really well on it. And then I remember you said like going to season 4 that your school's gonna start like later in that year, and you don't know like when you can, like how long you can play, but you were like, I'll still play until I can't. Basically, is what you said, I think, or something along those
Yeah,
lines. I don't
that sounds
remember.
about right.
I don't remember exactly, but
Yeah, I don't remember. It's a blur. But yeah, I don't know. I just basically went to school and played Smite and worked out. And that's like what I did. But yeah, it was tough at times, and that's why I think it was like frustrating for me too. Is because like that's how like I lived my life. Like I could do those things, and then I'd see people who like literally weren't going to school and weren't working, and all they did was play Smite. And I'm like, so you're like not capable of like scrimming for more than like an hour and a half or like doing picks and bans. So I'm like,
3 games out, no draft, no anything. Just
I'm
checked
just
out.
like, yeah, yeah.
that
And
is
then
crazy.
yeah, yeah. It was. I remember. I think the one of the crazy times too is I was it was Legion of Carrots days, and I was going back and doing my post back. So like basically, when I went to college, I didn't initially know I wanted to go to med school. So I was just like a psychology major. So I didn't have all my science classes. So then when I graduated, I had to go back and do a bunch of science classes. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want to do science classes for 2 years. I want to do it in 1 year. And it's like, okay, well, there's a program at this college that I went to that was like a 12-month, 1 year, get it all done. I was like, great, sounds good. So I go back to that. But the problem is like you do all of organic chemistry, and a lot of people probably haven't done organic chemistry, but like it's supposed to be like one of the harder classes in undergrad. Just takes a lot of time. It's not like you don't have to be really smart. You just have to like study a lot because you have to memorize a lot of shit. And I did all of it in 10 weeks, where it's normally a class that people do over the course of 2 real semesters, but I did it all in 1 summer in 10 weeks. So like you would basically wake up in the morning and you'd go at 8 a.m. and you were there until 5 or 6 p.m. like in classes or in lab, and then you would like stay for office hours for a little while, go home, study until like you would go to sleep, wake up and do it all over again. And then on top of that, I would like play Smite like with like Legion of Carrots, which wasn't like eager, wasn't like but I like you guys could tell like I still like tried really hard and like wanted to scrim and go over strats and do picks bands, blah blah blah. So like that's like literally all I did, and like that was brutal for a while for sure. Like I don't, that was hard. So because some of the other times where I was like I'd come home, like I'd finish that post back and I was studying for the MCAT, like that was also a hard one because you had to study a lot. But at least I didn't necessarily have like a classroom I had to go sit in and like a lab I had to go sit in. Like I don't know. So like yeah, there's some interesting times where definitely like probably could have slept more, but also like literally that's all I did was school and Smite. Like there was no time for anything else.
Yeah, thinking about it now, it's crazy. I feel like there hasn't really been any other person who's balanced, at least from my knowledge, that much stuff while playing and still playing like at as high of a level as you played at for as long as you played at as well, which is crazy. Is there anyone that like that's done that comes to your mind, Mike? There might be someone else, but I can't think of anybody.
Right, like Hurry graduated and stuff, but I think nobody did like DJ like double down. Do you know what I mean? Like most people did college, like, added a year to it. You're like, I'm going to reduce it by a year and keep doing everything else I want to do. So I don't think there's anyone else that did that.
Yeah, and I think like there's a difference too. Like I think that again, it's not necessarily like an intelligence thing. It's just like a try hard thing where like you can go to college and graduate and like really not try very hard. Like it's not really that difficult, to be honest with you. And if you want to get good grades, it's really just a matter of like, do I care enough to study before I take this test and stuff like that. But then when you start like talking about like the medicine route, like it's getting crazier and crazier. Like I looked at the stats for the med school I went to the other day for like acceptance rates and like what the average MCAT and the GPA, and like it's just getting worse and worse every year, where like the acceptance rate is like 2% now. And the average GPA is like 3.86 overall and 3.88 for science. And the average MCAT score is like 512.5 or something, which is like basically like 90 plus percentile. And it's just like, man, like, I don't know. I think that when you start talking about that kind of stuff, it's like, it's different than just like showing up to your college class and like turning in your bullshit essay. Like, cause I remember like when I did that post back, the first test I took, I got like a 56%, and I was like, I'm fucked. Like that's it. It's over for me. And then like I went to the teacher's office hours. I was like, okay, what do I need to do to get an A? Because like I know GPA wise, I cannot get an A minus. Like I have to get like a flat A. So like, what do I have to do? And he's like, okay, you got to do this, this, and this. I was like, all right, sounds good. And then like I worked out and I did it all, but like it's just like a different level. It's not like a show up and it's okay. It's like you got to really like want to do it, I guess.
Are you, sorry, I'm not super educated on it, I guess. Like, are you still in school now? Like, how far through all of that are you?
No, I finished med school a little over 2 years ago.
Oh, okay, cool.
So now after you finish medical school, if you want to like practice medicine, you basically have to do residency, which is like a job, but and like you're working as a physician, but you're basically working underneath someone who's been doing it for a long time, right? So like they kind of provide some oversight while you're training, and that can differ. If you are doing something like family medicine, you can do like a 3-year residency. If you're doing something like emergency medicine, it's 4 years. If you're doing something like me, like plastic surgery, it's 6 years. And then after that 6 years, which I'm in my 3rd year right now of residency, after 6 years, then you go off and like there is no more like oversight or anyone that you necessarily like call or talk to about patients. It's like you are your own person, like completely.
You like start your own practice or whatever.
Yeah,
or join a practice, or
yeah.
That's cool. Are you? I'd imagine not that frequently, but I'm curious just because there's probably not a lot of people in your field that also had like a competitive gaming background. Does that ever like come up either through your schooling or your residency?
It comes up at times for sure. Like I had one of my bosses was like into gaming a little bit, so like we've talked about like streaming and games and stuff like that, but very infrequently, I would say. Because again, like if you chose to go down that route, you probably are a casual gamer. Like you can like games. There's a lot of people in residency who are like to play games, but they just do it on a very casual level where they like never played competitive. They're probably that friend that you liked playing with, but then would like disappear because they were like taking a hard class or something like that. You know what I mean? They're not the ones who like instead did the opposite where they were like up until like 3 a.m. like playing. You know, that's just
the
not
real degenerates. Yeah,
yeah. That's just not, that doesn't exist.
The other thing I wanted to bring up is like, what other games have you been playing recently? I know for a while you raid led a classic WoW guild that I made with my friend Jim, and then like you basically took it over and you guys like completely ruled whatever server you're on. You guys were like an insane guild. I remember a bunch of my friends that I still talk to today, like that I grew up with, were in the guild as well, and they all loved it. And it was seemed like a good time. That was like during COVID, right?
Yeah, dude, that just shows you how like weird I am. So like I was in med school, but it was a little bit lucky though, because there was like COVID time. So like during COVID times when I was on internal medicine, like right when the whole like thing kind of happened, and they were like, okay, you guys should go home, and like we'll figure out what we're gonna do, like or whatever. So we had some downtime, and like I was playing classic WoW because Aurora was like, yo, come play on my server. All my friends are playing. I was like, great, this sounds awesome. And then I come play on a server. We get to like the max level or whatever, and like it's really fun. It reminds me of like the old days. And then Aurora quits, brothers quit, and I'm just like, what the fuck, man? Like, I'm having fun. I was like, I'm having fun, and like I'm losing good players, and I got to do 40-man raids. What do I do? And like the sensible person would be like, I quit too. But then I was like, no, I'm actually going to recruit a bunch of random people on the internet for 40-man raids. I was like, not only am I going to do that, but we're gonna do it like really well and never miss a single raid lockout and do all the content from like Molten Core to all the way through Naxxramas, like every week.
And you did Nax when it was trivial as well. Like you did it from the start of MC all the way till the end of Nax. Like and basically until pre-patch of Burning Crusade. Like you ran a guild like insanely well for the entire period of Classic.
Yeah, if anyone like played Classic at all and knows Classic at all, they know like ATS, which is like the staff that you can make by getting fragments from Nax. Like I had that on my mage, which like the only way you have that is if you do every lockout for like 2+ months at least.
And you're the raid leader, basically.
Yeah, and it's like it's just like and it was crazy, but we did it and it was actually like so much fun. And like the guild was awesome because it was a mixture of people from my chat, like Auror's friends from real life that like, you know, became kind of my friends through that process. And then a bunch of random ass people from the internet that we met. And it was a way to be competitive again. Like, again, it's WoW. So it's not like, you know, Smite or Counter-Strike. But like, again, I was back at it with like Excel sheets of like, here's the raid assignments. Here's who you're healing. Here's who's tanking this. Like, you know, here's how we're going to minimize the time to clear this raid, like blah, blah, blah. Like, but yeah, it was really fun.
I think you gave like everybody I talked to about it, like if they loved it or hated it, they have so many good memories just from that time in WoW. And I feel like you definitely were one of the main reasons why they enjoyed it so much as they did, because like you could play Classic and like for me, I just didn't find it fun. I wish I did, because I feel like I would have had a blast in the guild just from all the stories I've heard and like all the like the nonsense that happened. I really wish I played just for that, just for the guild. Like even though I didn't like the game, like I liked like in Classic for me, I like leveling, and then after that, I don't really like the end game that much. But I feel like the thing about Classic is not really about the end game. It's about like the experiences like with the guild that you have and like the community you make. And I feel like you made like a really good community of people. And the other thing too with that is you made it like competitive. I'm curious, like comparing it to Smite, how like did you take anything from Smite and CS and like put it in the guild? You obviously did, but was it hard to like transition like some of those things, because it's not as a competitive game, I feel like, as Smite and CS.
Yeah. So. It wasn't as like competitive, wasn't as like high stakes, I guess, but you still got to realize like, okay, here's your really good players. Okay. So you need to make this person definitely be like a main tank, right? And these are your top DPS. And then like these people are a little bit soft, so you need to like baby them a little bit. And this person you need to tell like, yo, you're fucking up. So like stop fucking up. And then like, and then you just have to like, I don't know, like manage everything too. Like managing like 40-man raids is hard. So you need to like recruit people constantly and like be able to talk to all these different people and then keep them around, and all this stuff. And then, like you said, it's all about like the vibe too. So like trying to encourage people to come in Discord, like, hey, like I'm doing this AoE grinding, like get your alt in here and I'll like help level up your alt or whatever, and like just hang out. And then we do like battlegrounds too, where like 5 of us were probably like really competitive gamers, and the other 10 like in Arathi Basin were like kind of not great players. But like I was like, okay, here's our strat. We get this place, we have this many people over here, this many people over here. If they rotate here, go like this. And we would stomp these people like in like Grand Marshal gear, like, and like insane comps, like, and we were like trash comp. Like none of us were like the nerds who would like play like 20 hours a day to get Grand Marshal. So we're like in PvE gear and like just like not the best composition, but we would like win the games in like 5 minutes. And like that shit was so fun because we would just like troll people so hard. Just like, how are you losing right now to a bunch of like scrubs? Like, so yeah, it was actually really fun. I liked Classic WoW.
My friend Ryan, I was talking to him literally a couple days ago about this, or Hoot, and he was telling me how you guys were running Scarlet Monastery, which is a dungeon like in the mid levels of WoW, when you guys were leveling alts one night, and you guys did Armory. There's like 4 wings of the dungeon, and one of them is called Armory. And you guys were running that, and you cleared it once, and you were gonna do 2 runs of it. And you guys were like so tired, I guess, because it was like 3 a.m. or something, and you ran all the way to the beginning, but you guys never ran out, or you didn't reset it. You basically just ran back in, and all the trash respawned, and you guys cleared the entire dungeon again. Opened the doors, were like where Herod's supposed to be, and he wasn't there, and you guys like lost it. He said, and like we're like, oh my god. And there's like so many troll things I feel like that happened like in the guild that like. Just talking to Moswald. Moswald's like another person in the guild. Moswald's dad also played in the guild.
Yeah,
which is
that
awesome
was great too.
Yeah,
dude, that was so cool. And like, it's not like Moswald's dad would just like log on and like log off. Like, he would come hang out in like Discord, like, and we'd call him Pops, because he was, like he was like literally Moswald's dad, like hanging out with us, like. And there was other older people too. There was this couple. Forget the names. One of them was Senia and something else, and they were like Moswald's dad's age, and they were like a married couple that would raid with us. And like, obviously, like they weren't the best players, but they were like hilarious, and like it just like made the guild better. Yeah, and there's a million funny stories. Like, there was this one time, so like world buffs were really important in vanilla, and at the time there wasn't like the thing that you can like store your world buffs in. So like once you got them, you needed to like carefully get to the raid and not get ganked or die or anything. And then once in the raid, you needed to be like cautious to not like do something stupid and die, because then you lose your world buffs and you're like literally half as powerful. But there was one raid we were doing AQ, and I'm a mage, and like I'm trying to speed clear. I'm like, yo, we got to get in there. Yeah, we got to get in there. Like, let's go. Like, and so I'm on my mount and I run, and I don't know what happened, but I like got just ahead of our main tank, and I ran into the first boss, like literally face first, and he just whacks me once, and I die instantaneously, lose all my world buffs, and I just go, okay. I'm basically done for the rest of the raid. I'm just like this scrub with no buffs. I was so mad. But that's like how vanilla is. Like, everyone has that story too, where they just lost everything instantly in the raid.
Are you planning on playing hardcore at all?
I played like the unofficial hardcore a little bit with one of my friends from Counter-Strike, and it was pretty fun. But like, man, I don't know. I put so many hours in vanilla WoW where like, to me, it's just like, I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna like be something I would enjoy doing, to be honest, because like,
I feel like that's only going to be fun for like the actual leveling experience, but raids would be so stressful.
yeah, and it's just like that completely ruins the way that I like to play WoW too. Like, everyone that I play with, they're like, stop pulling so fast, stop doing this so fast. Like, it's stressing me out. And I'm just like, bro, this is the only way I can play. Like, you just hold W and you go. Like, and so like hardcore is like the exact opposite. It's like you just sit around and like only take like the most perfectly calculated risks with like everything to survive. Like, that sounds so boring.
It's like everybody's playing with a notebook, and like they do one pull, and then they like calculate like what we're doing for the next pull, and then they do the next pull.
And then the other thing is like, if anything goes wrong, they pop the flask where they like turn to stone and they hearth, and I'm just like, dude, like that alone makes me not want to play, because I'm like, no man, like if you pull and things go wrong, you should die. Like, you don't just get to like bail on everyone and disappear. Like, that's stupid. Like, so I don't think I will, to be honest. Unfortunately, I am waiting for a new MMO. Like, I love MMOs. Dude, they're so fun.
Speaking of MMOs, the one I'm most excited for, I know like Ash's creation, like that game looks cool. I don't know if it's gonna be any good, but the one that I want to play is the one that Riot's gonna make. I'm hoping that game's really good.
Oh, it's gonna be good.
I'm hoping that game's good.
For
that? Wait, sorry, what'd you say?
I asked if they had like a general like release ETA on that.
No. It's probably like, I'm guessing 2026 or 27 would be my guess, at least, or something like that.
It's definitely at least a couple or a few years out, like, no doubt.
I feel like MMOs are so hard to make as well.
Yeah. And so whatever Riot makes is going to be good. Will it be like 10 years worth of good? I don't know. But like, it'll 100% be like at least like a few months worth of good. Like, worthy of a buy and play with your friends, for sure. I hope it's like something that has longevity to it, because like everyone could use an MMO, I think, right now. And then like Ashes is one of those things where it's like, man, that'd be so cool if it was like awesome.
Yeah.
But it's been in development for so long, and it's like such a crazy, like, they're just promising the world where you're just like, I don't know. Like,
some of the stuff looks so good and some of it just looks so bad. Like, if you look at some of the stuff.
Yep. But we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I'm surprised that like there isn't more of a push for people. I know it's like the most expensive game you could possibly make. You're basically like all in. You're saying, I'm spending millions of dollars. Good luck. But I don't know. There's also other games that I wish they did a classic on. Like one of the games that I really liked was WildStar, which not a lot of people played. But it was basically made by all the original like WoW developers and was considered to be like one of the best MMOs. But the problem is that they made arena rewards available instantly. So then a bunch of people like rushed to max level, got the best weapons in the game from playing arena, and then would like not let anyone get high rating. So they would like sell like carries, and that ruined the PvP scene. And then for the rating scene, like it was the equivalent of like Mythic, but there was no other option. So like only like 0.1% of the population could even like complete a raid. And then the like attunement process was like a nightmare apparently. And so it just killed all the casual players. And the game never recovered. And then yeah, like now people are trying to reverse engineer the game to make like a basically like private servers. But it's not really going so hot. So that's unfortunate.
One thing that you brought up about casual players, like it's something that you can relate to even like a game like Smite. Any game needs like a good amount of like a casual scene, and I feel like a lot of people that are like so ingrained in the community and been around a long time, I feel like kind of forget that. And like it's important that new people come in and try the game and like give an opinion about it and just like have fun with it. And it's really hard to hit like a bunch of different communities when you make games nowadays, because I feel like everybody's so good at games too compared to like how they used to be, at least from my experience.
I feel like
Yeah.
it's such a weird mix. Like the average player is probably better because you just like I played vanilla WoW when I was like 7 years old, and like there were no like raid guides back then really. Like you just walked in and like had to figure it out. And I feel like now you can like fully research a game, like look everything up on it. Like the average player is better. Like you get that, and then you also get like we're all just like dopamine fiends. Like you get like the like Fortnite kids who just need like instant action like over and over and over. And I feel like it's so hard to like find a niche in a community like a WoW or something like that where people are like actually in it for like just chilling together, like playing random PvP games that like don't matter, or like just like literally like farming for like alts and stuff. Like that's such a like an ancient thing in gaming, I feel like now.
Yeah.
And streaming too, like people stream like
Yeah.
you're a perfect example of a DJ. Like season 1, season 2 Smite, like people would watch you play, and like it's any game nowadays too. Like you watch someone really good play, you just copy off them, and then like you just instantly get like a lot better. I feel like how many CS 1.6 streams did you watch like when you played back then? Like was there a
None.
lot? Yeah, exactly. Like
No, what you did back then was well, what I did, not everyone. I mean, it's like similar to like how Smite is, right? There's some people that do more and less or whatever. But there was no streams realistically. I think there was like Justin TV towards the end,
Yeah.
but I never watched it. Like that was not like a thing.
mhm.
But what you'd do is you'd either, if you didn't really want to learn, but it was fun and you wanted to watch it, there was like frag movies where like you could watch like highlights and you're like, yeah, this is sick. It's like Linkin Park playing and it was awesome. Or you could go to a website called hltv.org, which still exists, because HLTV was like high risk spectator basically, that you could like record games. And so you could download the demos of like a team scrimming or having a match, whatever. And then you could literally like watch them play and like copy their strategies and stuff like that. So then I would just download a bunch of demos, mostly of European teams, because I didn't get to watch them play as much and they were like considered better. And I would just be like, oh, that's a cool like pistol round strat. Like, oh, that's a cool like, I don't know, like spot to op from or whatever. Like, and then like, oh, that's an awesome grenade. And then yeah, so there was no streams. You had to like really kind of hunt demos down and really watch them. It wasn't just like log on to Twitch and watch.
Yeah, because you could, like Mike was saying, you could literally go to YouTube, type in "How do I play this god" for Smite. You go to
Yeah.
Twitch. You could go to someone like Zapman stream, Mike stream. Literally, you just pick a role that you're playing. You go to that person's stream. You ask them, "Hey, can you play this character?" Or, "Hey, how do I get better at this character?" Oh, or if they're just playing the character, or they're playing some random god and you're watching them play it, like, oh, you're like, oh, that's how you do this in lane, or like you couldn't do that before when you played games. Like every game you can do that now, and it just makes the average player better. So it makes, I feel like it makes it harder to be like casual in multiplayer games, and
Yeah.
like just playing like a multiplayer game with any like competition is so much harder now than it was in the
Yeah.
past. And
Yeah, I mean, I even do that. Like so every once in a while I'll come and like play Smite for a while, right? Like I'll like not play forever, and then I'll play like, and I'll be like, oh, this is kind of fun. So I'll play for like 2 weeks or something, and like I'll be like, I don't know what the hell the jungle opener is or whatever. So like pull on a stream and I'll like watch someone do something. I'm like, ah, okay, that's the jungler opener, and then I just like pick a jungle and copy them, and I'm like, okay, this is good. Like, yeah. So if you don't do that, you're screwed.
yeah,
Yep.
Like,
And you get BM'd like crazy.
You have to do that.
You do know.
yeah.
But yeah, thanks for coming on, DJ. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to talk about that we didn't touch? I know we talked about a lot of stuff, but
No, I mean, this is your guys' show. It's all you. I'm
where,
just along for the ride.
where can people find you? Like on Twitter and Twitch? Like, do you have anything that you want to plug, like for social media stuff?
Not really. I mean, OnlyFans. You guys could. I mean, everyone can just follow me on my Twitch. I don't stream as much anymore, but like, I still like stream from time to time, and I still plan on like streaming, like at points, you know. Like, so if anyone, most people probably watch me and probably already follow me, but my Twitch does exist, and it will go live from time to time. And if I find something that's really fun, that's like a streamer and like Twitch friendly game, then I'll certainly click the on button.
If you want to find his Twitch, it's in the titles. You just click it. It's cool now they like added that or whatever. You can like put people's Twitches in the title, so it's right there. So you guys can click over and follow. Do you have anything else, Mike, that you wanted to add or no?
No. Thanks again for your time. I didn't realize how long we've been going, but definitely appreciate you coming on and hanging out and chatting for a bit.
Yeah, no worries. Where are we at right now with like Smite season? Like, do you guys have like one more split before like Worlds, or where we at?
We have like another. I think we have like a month off, and then there's like some summer events and stuff, and then we have like split, like basically regionals, and then Worlds.
Yeah, so there
Okay.
used to be 3 phases in the year. Was there 3 phases last year? I don't even remember now. It, like all blends together.
Yeah, it was.
So there's usually 3 phases, but this year they did it differently. Like there's like divisions now, and like before you play any regular season games, you play a qualifier event that if you win the event, you pick your division, and then you play more games within your division, and then you still play the other teams from the other division as well. And then there's only 2 phases this year instead of 3, and then we're going into the second phase, and then this phase happens. Then there's like playoffs for this phase, I think, as well, and then Worlds happens after that in January, and it's in Dallas again.
Nice. That's cool. Oh yeah. Oh, because they changed the location recently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they plan on doing it in Dallas for the foreseeable future.
Well,
I'm not sure. At least this year,
the venue is super sick. I really like the venue, and I think everybody at Hi-Rez at least liked it a lot. So they're like, "Why not just do it there again?" It's a good place to have it. It was like, I feel like it was perfect for like a Smite event. At least that's what it felt like to me.
From a player perspective as well, that's like the best venue I've ever played at. Like,
the
each team had rooms were so good.
Which was
like,
great.
It was so good.
Well, it's probably a setup for like other esports events, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so you guys are just kind of like slot into what already exists.
Yeah, we're basically just renting it out, but it's really nice.
Yeah, I feel like you'd actually. I wanted to say this earlier, I forgot. Just one last thing that popped in my mind, like this like past season and like last year's season, I feel like if you were still playing comp, you would like the meta a lot, like in like the comp meta at least. Maybe not ranked because it's like completely different, but like I think you'd really like the comp meta right now. With how everything's going, especially this year, I think you'd really enjoy it a lot. And same with Divios too. I was literally thinking about that. I was like, it's funny because I feel like the Eager team that we were on would really like the meta a lot.
The last few years, Divios would have been having a field day.
Yeah,
the way solo lane's been played, he would have loved it.
He would love it so much.
Have you talked to him recently?
Yeah, I've talked to him a little bit. I actually played Smite with him too. I've talked to Best a lot because I still play WoW and like random games with Best. all the time, and then Divios. I go to his stream. He streams BDO all the time, and I'll go to his stream
Really?
and I'll say like random stuff, and I'll ask him like the dumbest questions because I don't know anything about the game. I'm like, "What is that?" And he's like, and then he'd explain it to me. And I'm like, "Oh, cool." And then I played Smite with him. Like, when did Gilgamesh come out? Was that season 8?
Yeah.
I played a little bit with him in season 9 as well. Like last year, I think I played a couple games with him. But I remember Gilgamesh came out. And he played him, and like his second game back, he got like a pentakill. Like me, him, and Best were just playing casuals. He got like a pentakill on Gilgamesh. It was so troll.
Nice.
That's a Divios character for sure. Gilgamesh. That's good.
But yeah, I've talked to him a little bit. But I'll jump into his stream if I ever see him on, and I'm like on Twitch. I'll always go in there and say something stupid all the time.
Still going strong in Black Desert.
Yeah,
You love to see it. Oh man, that's funny. All right, well, cool. Good luck to you guys. You guys are both on different teams, right?
yeah.
Nice.
My
Wait,
team
who's
name
on-
is great. My team name's the Styx Ferrymen.
Yeah, I saw that. Who's on your team again, Aurora?
Baskin, Paul, Cyclone Spin, and Sino. So you probably know everybody on my team actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you
And then
you
who's on-
might you might know everybody on Mike's team too.
Nika, Vo, Laspra, Dardas.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bunch of old school guys still around for sure.
Yeah.
If you guys want to watch the VOD, you can find it on PBM Smite YouTube. Is that right? And then
You got it.
on Spotify, it's Inside the SPL. And then we're gonna be back again next Saturday. It's gonna be a little bit earlier. We have a special guest planned for that. I'm excited for that episode. So
Yeah, we'll both tweet and give you guys an update on time a little bit in advance. But yeah, appreciate everybody for tuning in.
I wish I was a special guest.
whatever, dude. You were a special guest.
I'm just kidding.
I appreciate
guys.
it. All right.
See ya.
See ya. Bye.
One if I'm trolling from Professor BM. You can hear the audience. I wonder if there's a favorite.